Hi guys, welcome to this video. This video is going to be a course where we create an AI powered app, and what this app is going to be doing is that it's going to be generating a blog article from a YouTube video. So we're going to create a whole system where a user will be able to input a YouTube link, and once they click on a button, a blog article is going to be generated based on that YouTube video. Now for this, we are going to be using Python, Django, TailwindCSS, PostgreSQL, and some other technologies. I'm going to talk about them later in the video. Now before we move on, let me show you around and let me show you the end product of what we're going to be building. So right here is the home page. Before I come here, I'm just going to go to logout. Now I'm logged out. What I can do now is just to log in, or I could come here to sign up if I don't have an account. So I'm just going to log in as my name, and once I log in and click enter, now you're going to see that it's going to take me back to this home page and it's going to say welcome to me. Now the next thing I can do is to just paste in a YouTube link, and it's going to generate an article from this YouTube link. Now I'm just here in my channel and I'm going to click on the latest YouTube video of mine. I'm going to copy that link and I'm going to come back to the application we're building. I'm going to paste that in and I'm going to click on generate. Now you're going to see this rolling circle, and this is just going to keep rolling until this process has been done. So there's a few steps that actually goes on in the backend. So the first thing that's going to happen is that we are going to use this particular link to first get the transcript of that particular YouTube video. So the first thing we're going to do is to download the mp3 file, which is the audio file of that YouTube video. Then we're going to convert that audio file to a transcript, and then we are going to generate a blog article based on that transcript. So that's why it takes a few seconds for it to actually complete all of these tasks. So it's using various APIs from various platforms to do all of this. So as you can see, this has been generated right here, and this is what we have right now. And if I come back here and I go into saved blog post, it's going to show me all of the articles that I have generated. So I could click on one. If I click on this one, you see it shows me what I just generated right now. It shows me the YouTube title and it shows me the link to that YouTube video. So this is what we are going to be building in this particular video. Now let me explain what APIs we're going to be using. So for us to be able to get the transcript of a YouTube video, we're going to be using AssemblyAI. And then for the Postgres database, we're going to be using a managed database from a platform called Covery. And for us to then generate this particular article from a transcript, we're going to be using OpenAI. Now the link to the complete project of everything that we're going to be doing is going to be in the description below. And if you like more tutorials like this, please don't forget to check out my channel at Code with Tommy, where I teach more on web development and programming in general. Now let's get straight into this video. The first thing we're going to do is to set up the folder structure. Now right here in my computer, under Documents, I created a folder and I named that folder AI Blog App. And under there, I created another folder named Frontend. And that front end is where I'm going to write all our HTML files and basically all the template files we need for our application. And what I did was I opened up this folder right here on VS Code. So make sure you set up this project wherever you want and then open it up on VS Code. So the first thing we're going to do is to actually build out the front end of this whole project. So before we even open up Django or do anything regarding the backend, let's build out how this project is going to look. So let's do that right now. Now the first thing we're going to work on is the home page. So I'm going to create a new HTML file and I'm going to name it index.html. So this is basically the HTML file for the home page, and you can name it whatever you want, but for this video I'm going to be naming it index.html. Now I'm just going to bring up like this boilerplate right here. So this is what we're going to be starting off of. What you just need to do is to click on, let me go back and explain that. So you just need to have the exclamation mark, and then this is going to come up, and click enter, and then all of this is going to pop up. Now before we move forward, I'm going to be using a live preview. So I'm going to show you what that is. So instead of me having to save this file every single time and then come to the browser to refresh it, what I'm going to do is just to open up live preview on here on VS Code. So for you to do that, you need to come into extensions and then you need to say live preview. So right here it says I have it installed. You go ahead and install that if you want to follow along with every single thing I'm doing. And once you have that installed, we can continue. I'm going to come back to this, and for me to open it up on live preview, I need to right click on the file. I'm going to right click on that and click on show preview. So right now it doesn't show anything because it's blank, but this is working. I'm going to close that, and then we're just going to continue with this. And the first thing I'm going to do is to change this title. I'm going to change it from documents to AI blog generator. Now immediately after that, the next thing I'm going to do is to just add in Tailwind CSS. So I'm just going to bring in Tailwind CSS right here, and that is just going to be a CDN. So for Tailwind, we're not going to be downloading it like locally on our computer or going through all those process. I'm just going to make it faster, and we're going to use a CDN. Now you can do whatever you want. You can use it the other way, where you have to go through the installation process so that you can customize it however you want, but we don't really need that for this video. So I'm just going to go through the CDN and make everything faster. So for me to go use the CDN, I'm going to paste in this code right here, and this is just a basic link tag, and then is linking to the CDN of Tailwind. So I'm just going to scroll through so you can see what that is, and this is the latest version. And then it's just saying real is style sheet, so it's just saying this is a style sheet. As you can see, it is a CSS file. Now that is working, and as you can see, this boilerplate that we generated has every single thing we need. It has the head tag, it has the HTML tag, the doc type, and it has the body. Now that we have most of this thing configured for us, the next thing I'm going to do is to just come into the body. Now we're going to have to work on a navbar. So before we do anything, let's just come in here and let me have like a comment. I'm just going to say navbar, and in here I'm going to have a nav tag, and what I'm going to do is to give it a class. So we're going to be using Tailwind CSS for all the styling. I'm just going to give it a background of blue for the navbar of 600, and let's have P4, and as you can see, it has a background of blue already, and I want the text to be white, so I'm going to say text white, and I'm going to add flex, and let's say justify between. Now this should be good enough, and I'm just going to add like a title here that says something like AI blog generator. So right here under this navbar, I'm going to have a div tag, and under that div tag I'm going to have an h1, and that's just going to say AI blog generator. So this is nice. Let's change some stuff. So I'm going to give it a class. We're using Tailwind CSS again, and let's change the text to make it larger. And another thing we can do is to make it bold. So bold and good. I think this is perfect. If I make this like this, that is nice. And the next thing we can do is to have like our options right here. So I want it to say something like saved blog post or log out or login, whatever we need. So for now, I'm just gonna say, let's have another div tag, and on here I'm gonna have a link, and in this link let's just say something like log out, and I'm just gonna say it needs to have an f tag, and then let's just give it hashtag for now. And now for the class, we want the text to be white, and let's give it an over. So once we under it, it should have an underline. So we're giving it over of underline, and let's see how that is. So as you can see, once we over it shows that underline, which is nice. We can add more options later as we go, but for now I think this should be okay. And yeah, this should be nice. Now, before I move forward to styling the actual body, the next thing I want to do is to style the body tag. So what we're going to do is to create like a box on here that is going to have like input where they can input their YouTube link. It's going to have where the blog article is going to be generated. But before I do that, let me style the whole body. So we're going to use Tailwind, as I said, and let's give it flex, and let's say flex column, and you're going to see what all of this does in a bit. H screen, and we should give it a background of like, let's say gray 100, and let's give it the font of sans, and I think this should be perfect. Yes, this should be good for what we want to build, and I'm just gonna save that. And the next thing we're gonna do is to come all the way here, and then we're gonna create like a main content. So I'm just gonna come here, and I'm gonna say, let me just have a new div tag, and up here I'm just gonna say something like main. Let me comment that out. Nice. And for this, I want to style it again, but before we style it, I'm just gonna leave it for now. Let's take care of all the tags. I'm gonna have another div tag. I'm gonna see why. So I'm gonna have, under this div tag, let me have one more, and in here this is just gonna be like a text. So first of all, let's have an h2, and this h2 is just gonna say something like welcome, welcome to AI blog generator, to the AI blog generator, right? And this should be nice, although it's just right here. We're going to change all the styling. We're going to use TailwindCSS once again to do everything we need to do. And under it, I want to have like a p tag, and I'm just going to have like a bunch of text. And actually, instead of typing in all this text, what I'm just going to do is do this. So this is the text. I'm just going to close this a little bit. So this is the old text right here. Let me make sure that you can see everything. So generate high quality blog articles from YouTube videos using artificial intelligence. Simply enter the link to the YouTube video below and let the AI create the content for you. That is nice, but it's not looking too good here. It's just looking like a normal text. Now let's change that. Let's change that. And what I'm gonna do right here, I just want to give it like just to make sure we know everything we're doing. Let me say introduction section, and comment that out. Now the first thing we're going to do is just to make sure that for this introduction section, all the text is going to the center. So let's give it a class of text center. Good. So now everything is in the center. And the next thing we're going to do for the h2, let's style that real quick. We're going to come up and style the whole main body, the whole main content, but for now let's take care of this text. And for this h2, let's change the text size. So let's say to Excel. Yes, that is nice. So now it distinguishes the title from the other text. And the next thing we're going to do is to change the font. So let's say font semi-bold. I think nice, because I don't want it to be too bold like this, but I think semi-bold is okay. And let's say MB4. Okay, I think that is good. And for this text, let's actually change the color a little bit. So let's say text gray 700. Yes, nice. This looks perfect. So you can distinguish everything. And one thing I want to do is, this is too close to the nav bar, and I'm going to change that right now. So right here before the main content, I'm going to have a BR tag. Just going to paste that again. And I think that should be good. Yes, that is good. And let's just close that up. And now right here, since we have all of this done, the next thing I'm going to do is to come back in here and style the div tag of the main content. So right here I'm going to do class, and let's give it flex grow and container. So yeah, flex grow container, let's say mx auto. And I'm hoping you have a basic idea of Tailwind just to follow along with this tutorial. But if you don't, that's okay, because I'm still explaining everything that we're going to be doing. So you're going to see what all of this does in a bit. And let's say px0, right? And that should be good for the whole main content. And for this, because this is where all of the section is gonna be, where all the input and every other thing, where they input the YouTube link, let's change some stuff. So let's say class max w3x and mx auto also, and let's give it a background of white, and let's say p6, and let's make this rounded. As you can see now, this is rounded. This, by the way, just so you know, for this div, this is what we are taking care of, this right here. So as I said, I was gonna put it in like a box, so the main body has like a grayish background, but this one that we're doing is like a box, it's in like a card. If you understand CSS, this looks like a basic card. So this we just made it round. That was the last thing we did. And let's see what next we can do. Let's give it a shadow. So let's say shadow md, and as you can see, a little bit of shadow appeared. Let's say transition. So I'm gonna show you what this transition does. And right now, if I come here, nothing happens. But once I do the transition, once I come on this, it's gonna like expand a little bit. So let's make that transition happen. So transition transform, and let's say transform, and also give it, let's over, because we want that transition to happen once we over on it. So over scale 105. So it's gonna scale up to 105 once we over on it, and let's just give it flex and then flex column. Okay, cool. Now let's test this out. So if we come here, great. As you can see, once we overrun it, it expands. This is nice. This is exactly what we want. Now let's add the section under here where we have like the input bar, where a user can input a YouTube link. So now let's just do that real quick. Right under this introduction section, we want to have that. So what I'm gonna do is, let me add a BR first, so you know there's a space in between it. And the next thing I'm gonna do is to say YouTube section. Let's comment that out. Nice. And right here I'm gonna have another div tag, but this is, doesn't really need to take any styling. So say div, and under that div tag I'm gonna have an h2, and I'm gonna have another div. I'm gonna see what we're doing in a second. And nice. So now under this h2, I want to have something that says enter YouTube link, and let's style it, because right now it's looking mid. So class text excel, nice, and mb4, nice, and font semi-bold, good. And what we need to do now is, for this div tag, I'm just gonna give it flex and kind of space. I'm gonna say space x4. Yes, this should be okay. And right here, now we're gonna have like an input, and what this is gonna do is where the user is gonna be able to input, the particular YouTube link. So what I'm gonna do is to give it an ID. I'm gonna say YouTube link, and let's give it a type. The type is gonna be URL, and the placeholder will be paste YouTube link. And I think the next thing is to style it, because right now it's just looking not really looking good right here. So let's give you a class, and let's say flex grow and p2 and border, and yeah, let's say border should be blue 100. Nice. And let's make this rounded because it doesn't really look good, so say rounded L and MD. Nice. So this is what we need. And the next thing we want to do is to have a button. So a button that just says something like generate blog or something like that. So let's just say button, and say generate. Nice. And in here you're just gonna have an ID. So that ID is gonna be something like generated blog button. Nice. Generate blog button. And for this, we don't really need to give it any other thing like a type or whatever. What we just need to do is to style it, because right now it doesn't even look like a button. So let's give it a background color first. Background blue 600. Nice. And then let's change that text to white. Nice. And then let's say px4, and then py2, and then let's make this rounded, and not just normal rounded, let's say RMD. Nice. So just on the right side, and let's give it over. So once we over on it, it gets like the blue gets thicker basically. So let's say once we over, the background color should change from blue 600 to blue 700. Does that work now? Nice. And let's see, let's say transition and colors. This should work. This should be nice. So if we do this, this is actually very good. And yes, this is good. So we're basically done with that YouTube section, and now we need another section where the article that is being generated will actually show. Now right here, after this div, we're actually gonna, instead of having a div, I think we should have a section tag now. And under this, just like usual, let's say generated blog display section. And let's just comment this out. And right here under section, let's first have an h2, and this h2 is just gonna say generated blog article. And for this h2, let's kind of style it, and let's say text. Let me first see how it looks like in real time. Text Excel, let's say MB4, and let's say font should be semi-bold. Nice. And what I'm gonna do is, for this section, let me give this a styling also, so it's gonna affect everything. MT10, good, nice. And let's say flex grow, good. Body responsiveness is perfect. So now what we're gonna do is, after this h2, what we need to do is to say div, and for this div, I'm gonna give it an ID of blog content, and let me style this. Let me give you a class mt2 and text, the text to be like gray. Let me say 700, and let's give it some space. Y4. This is nice, and I think this should be everything we need for now. So if I say something like cool, so this is how the generated text should show. And later we're going to come here, because like when we click on generate, I want like a a loading ring to show here, so like a circle that keeps loading until that block is generated. So later we're going to come here and do that. So let's just say section for loading circle. Let's just keep that comment and come back here. And then for now, I think this should be good. Let's just give it like a footer to wrap everything up. So right now, after this div, we can say footer, and let's say powered. Let me see in real time so I can know what to change. Okay, that's what it looks like. Powered by code we told me. But in this code we told me, let's give it a tag. Put code we told me in there, and let's link this to my YouTube channel. And I'm just gonna paste in the link of my YouTube channel in there. So paste. Nice. And for the footer in general, I need to give it some styling because it doesn't really look good right now. Class, let's say text center. Nice. And P4 should be down, good. And text black, want it all black, and empty6, good. Now that is perfect. And later when we're submitting this form, we're going to be using JavaScript. So let me just open up the script right now, and we'll come back to that later. So everything is done with this index.html. So if I expand this, this is how it looks like. This should be good. So generated article will show here. The user will input their link, and once the user inputs their link, I'm not sure why that happened, but once the user, okay, let's quit this and then just open that again, show preview. Nice. So once the user input their link and click generate, some stuff is going to get run in this script, and then it's going to generate that blog article right here. Now we're going to take care of the loading cycle. So as I said earlier, whenever a user clicks on this generate button, so when they put in a YouTube link and click on this generate button, it's going to actually take a few seconds for that particular article to be generated, because there's a lot of process that will be done in the backend, like that first downloading the audio file and then transcribing that audio file and then generating a blog article based on that audio file. So this will take a few seconds for that to process, and we don't just want the user to be left with a blank screen without knowing what is going on. So while all of that is going on, I want like a loading circle to show here, just to show that user, or to be able to interact with that user, so they know that whatever they want is being processed. Now let's do that. Earlier I wanted to put that particular circle right here. As you can see, we had a comment that said section for loading circle. I was going to put it under this generate blog article, but now I think I'm just going to put it on top here, so the circle should be loading here. And yeah, we're going to do that. So I'm going to take this away from here, and I'm going to put it right before the generated blog display section. Now what I'm going to do is to have like a div. So right here I'm going to say div to take care of this, and I'm going to give it an ID of loading cycle, and I'm going to give it a class of load. So for now nothing is showing, but what I'm going to do is, for this to actually happen, we need to use some CSS styling. So this should be custom. This is not going to be from TailwindCSS. So right here I'm going to use some keyframes and WebKit keyframes, and let me just show you what I'm going to do. So right here in the head, I'm just going to have a new style, and I'm actually just gonna put in the particular code for this instead of typing it out. And once again, all of this code is going to be available on my GitHub in the link in the description below. So if you are stuck anywhere, you just want to copy a code and paste it, I'm going to have that code right in the description below. Now this is everything we need. So first of all, this is the keyframe that is going to rotate it. And if you don't understand this particular CSS that we're doing, what you just need to know is that this first styles it, like it shows the width, the margin, the height, the normal basic stuff. And then all of this actually takes care of it being rotated, and all of this takes care of like the animation and all the transition needed. So this is the styling, or the CSS styling, that is going to take care of the loading cycle. I'm going to save it, and once we come here, as you can see, we have this cycle that is just loading, right? Now the problem is, whenever a user comes to this page, that cycle is just loading. We don't want this to happen. Now what we want is just only when a user clicks on generate, this cycle start loading. So for us to do this, what we're going to do is to come here, and where we put that particular loading cycle, we're going to give it a style, and then we're going to say display should be none. As you can see, that is done. Now when a user clicks on generate, we can have like an on-click button function in our JavaScript that automatically shows this. So it can change the display from none to block. So once that display changes to block, you're going to see that it's going to be shown. But we'll do that later in the JavaScript. For now, we're keeping it at none. Now the next thing that we're going to do is to create the template for our login. So we're going to have a login and sign up page. And let's start by creating the template for our login page. So I'm going to have to quit this, and what I'm just going to do is to open this up, just do this, and I'm going to create a login.html file. And in here, I'm going to do exactly the same thing and open up this basic boilerplate. And then what I'm just going to do right here is just to change this title to login. And once again, I'm going to have to use the TailwindCSS CDN. So I'm going to paste this in right here. And the next thing I'm going to do, this is more straightforward because we already done one. So we're just going to take the same thing that we did there. And now for the body, let's just give it a class bg gray 100 like we did before. Font sans like we did before. And then like we did before. And what we just need to do is to have the nav bar, and we could just copy this nav bar from here, and then we could paste that nav bar in. And the next thing is to have the main content where we have the actual login page. So I'm just gonna do this, and before I do this, I'm gonna open this up on live preview. I'm just gonna click on that, right click on it and click show preview. Nice, just to make sure that everything is good. And now right under here, under this, I'm gonna have main content, and then we're just gonna make sure to comment that out. And right here, I'm gonna have a div class. I'm gonna have another div class, div tag, sorry, not a class. And then for the class, I'm gonna have flex in here, and then I want all the items in here to be in the center, so every single thing, and justify center and each screen. And for this second one, I want the background of this to be like white, so let's say bg white, b8 shadow md. Nice, it's coming up. Then let's make it rounded lg. We're basically doing the same thing we did for the home page. I'm gonna say max wmd, give it w full. Nice, so now it's filled that up. And the next thing we're gonna do is to create a form. So right here, I'm just gonna say login form, and then comment that out, and let's just give you a form. And for the class, I'm gonna give it some spacing so that it won't just be all over the place. I'm gonna say space y4, and right here we need to have like an h2, and h1 is quite big, so we just say h2 that says login. Nice. But let me style it a little bit, and let me say something like text XL, so extra large, and font semi-bold. Nice. So now the next thing I want to do is to have div tags for each input. So right here I'm just going to say div, and I'm first going to have the label, and this will be username, because they're going to be able to log in with username and password. And this label is for username, so I'm going to create an input that has a name and ID of username, so it's going to be for username. And let me style this. I'm going to say class, and give this block and mb1, and font should be like, let's say, medium. Good. So the next thing we want to have is the actual input. So now we're going to say input, and then we're just going to close the input, and then the type right here is going to be text, and ID is going to be username, and we're also going to give it like name should be username, and I want to give you a placeholder. I'm going to say placeholder, enter your username. But right now you can see that it doesn't really look too good, so let's style it. So class, and we're going to say w-full, and let's say p2. Nice. And let's give you a border, and let's make that border round. Good. So this is all we need for this, and then we're going to do the exact same thing for the password. So what I'm just going to do is to copy this div tag, and I'm just going to change this to for password, and everything should remain the same, and the type should be password, ID should be password, name should be password, and placeholder should be enter your password. So that should work. And then the last thing we want to have is the submit button. So this shouldn't be here, this should be outside this div tag. So we're going to say button, and this button should just say like login, and I'm just going to say type submit, and we don't really need any other thing than the styling. So let's just style that button, because now it's just a text. So let's say class, and let's say w-full and bg blue. So let's give it a background color and of 600. Nice. And let's say text should be white, right? And once we need what we just did basically was making sure that the background color is 600, just matching what we did initially, and giving this text color of white because it was black, and giving the styling w-full. So once again, I'll recommend you kind of know Tailwind CSS to follow along. And yeah, so the next thing we want to do is p2, and let's make it that rounded. Nice. And let's give it over, because right now if we over it, it doesn't really do nothing. Let's change the color from 600 to 700. So bg blue 700. Nice. So that change worked. So now this particular login page is running successfully, so everything is working fine as it should be. The next thing I want to do is just to remove this. I want to change this from logout to login and sign up. So up here where we have logout, I'm going to change that to login. I'm going to change this to sign up. This is nice. This is everything we need. Now everything is working perfectly for the login page. Now the next thing we're going to take care of is the sign up page. This is going to be very quick because we already styled the login page, and the sign up page is not going to be any different. The only thing that's going to be different is the amount of fields. So I'm going to close this, and I'm going to open up this, and I'm going to create a new file named signup.html. So now on this signup.html, this is basically where I do everything related to the sign up page. So now I'm just going to have to copy all of this login code and paste it in here. Now the only thing that is going to be different is just the amount of fields that we have. So right here, we're going to have username, password. So we're going to have email also. So right here, I'm just going to copy, paste, and I'm going to say this is for email. And let's just say email. And the type should be email. And ID should be email, and name should be email. And I'm just going to say, for the placeholder, I'm just going to say enter your email. So that is all for the email. And the next thing is the password. So we want them to type in the password twice just to make sure that they are typing the correct password. We're going to say repeat password. And then we're going to say that here, repeat password. And for the ID, we're going to say repeat password, and for the name should be repeat password. And for the placeholder, we're just going to say repeat your password. Now this should work. Let's change this to sign up, which is the button. And right here where we have the title, let's change that title also to sign up. Now everything should be working perfectly. Let me open this in live preview. So show preview, and it says login. So let's come here and say sign up. Nice. So right here, as you can see, everything works perfectly fine. We have this sign up page, and this is too close to the top. So what we can do is just to come here, and right here where we have the main content, we're just gonna say PR, just to give it a little bit of spacing. And good, everything is working perfectly fine. Now we have the login and sign up. We have this AI block generator. The title says sign up, and we have this sign up form which collects username, email, password, and repeat password, and the sign up button too is there. So all of this works perfectly fine. Now the next thing we're going to do is to create a page where a user will be able to see all of the blog posts that they have generated. So right now we have created the home page, the login page, and the sign up page. Now we're going to create another page, as I said, where a user is going to see all of the posts that has been generated. So when we build the application, when a user uses the AI tool to generate a blog article from a YouTube video, they are going to be able to save that particular blog article, so that even if they log out of the platform and come back like 2 weeks later, they're still going to see that article there. Now let's create the template for that. I'm just going to create a new file, and I'm just going to name this all blogs.html, just a random name. And once again, I'm going to use this, and for the title, I'm just going to say all blog posts. And the next thing I want to do is to have the TailwindCSS CDN. So I'm just going to paste that in there. So let me remove this. So this is the Tailwind CDN right here. Once again, all the old code is going to be available in the description below on my GitHub. So now that we have this, the next thing that we want to do is right here in this body, I want to give it a class. So let me just style this body real quick. Let me change the background to like gray 100, and let me give it font sans, and yes, so that should be good. Now let me preview this so that we can see all the changes in real time. So show preview. Right now, nothing much. And then the next thing we want to do is to take care of the navbar. So we've created the navbar before. I'm just going to take that navbar from index. So I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to close this up. Right here where we have nav, I'm going to copy that navbar, and I'm gonna paste this navbar in here. So I'm gonna go into all blogs, and then I'm gonna paste this navbar in the body. Good. So this is what we need, and right here I'm just gonna say navbar, and I'm gonna comment that out. Now the next thing I want to do is to create a main container. So right here I'm just gonna type main content container. Just gonna comment that out, as this is just a comment. And let me decrease this a little bit so that we can have space to see the actual code. And right here, what I'm just going to do is I'm going to have a div tag. So first, let's create one div tag, and in there I'm going to create another one. Now in this second div tag, this is where I'm going to have like a section where we have the blog post. So I'm going to first type blog posts section, and right here I'm just going to comment it out, and then I'm gonna have a section, and I don't really need to style this section tag. I'm just gonna come down in here and do h2, and in here I'm just gonna say all blog posts, and I'm gonna give this a little bit of styling. So I'm gonna say style, and let's change the text to XL, and let's change this to, let's see, MB4. So first of all, it says we have an error. This should be class, not style. And font, let's make it semi-bold. Good. And now the next thing that we're going to do is to have a div tag in here. Let's create a div tag, and in here let me give this space y4. That should be good. And then in here I'm going to have another div, and in this div tag I'm going to have like an h3, and that is just going to say blog post title 1. So this is the section that shows all the blog posts, and I'm going to have like a p tag to show the content of that blog post, so the actual article. So I'm just going to say this is the content of the blog post, and I can just put the general Lorem ipsum dollar. Let me just leave that the way it is. I'll go finish it like this. So this looks good. Let me make this smaller once again. And the next thing I'm just gonna do is to have a class here, and for this div class I'm gonna give you a border, right? So like this, so it can be like in its own box. And let me say border gray 300, and I'm gonna say p4. Nice. And now let me make it rounded. Good. So now the next thing is to style this h3 tag. So I'm gonna say class, and let's change the text to like LG. Good. Make it larger, and let's give it a font of semi-bold so you can distinguish the title from the content. Good. So this should be good. This is looking okay, and I'm just gonna copy this and I'm gonna paste it again, and this time around I'm gonna say blog post title 2, and down here I'm just gonna keep repeating this. I'm just gonna say repeat. I'm just gonna comment that out right there. So that is looking good, but I feel like we could do more. So we could make it look better. So right here, let's come all the way up here where we have this. First of all, let's make this be in a container, and we can say mx auto and mt10 and the px4, and let's say sm px-0. Right, now that looks way better already. And let's style this second div also. So right here, I can create a class for it, and I can say max w 3xl. What else can we say? Let's say max mx auto, and we can give it a background of white just to distinguish it from the other one. So as you can see, this background is white and the other one is not, which is good. And let's say p6, good. And let's make it rounded too, g, nice. And let's top it up with like a shadow, good, perfect. Now this is basically what we need. It should look good. Now if I swipe right here, now this looks perfect, this is okay. And I think what we can just do is to come all the way to the bottom and give it its footer. So let's add a footer, and we're just gonna come into like index and copy that footer. Instead of typing it out, come here and paste it. So we've given it a footer, we've done everything necessary. Now let's come here and see the final product. This is how everything looks like, which is great. The footer also works. Now when a user clicks on each of these content, like right now if I click on it, nothing is happening. We want to create another page that is going to show like the full content. This just shows the list of all the content, all the articles that has been saved. But once I click on anyone, I want to open a page that shows the title, the YouTube link, the title of the YouTube video, the article that was generated, basically all the details of that particular article. Well, now let's create another page for that. So now the last thing we're going to do is to create one more HTML file, and this file is going to be called blog details. So as I said, whenever a user clicks on each of these blog posts, we want them to be able to see the details or the content of that blog. So let's do that. So we're going to quit this right now, and right here I'm just going to open up this, and I'm going to create a new HTML file called blog details.html. Now what I'm going to do is to have this, and then for the title I'm going to have blog post details. And then the next thing I'm going to do is that under this body, I'm going to style it a little bit. I'm going to say class, and for the class I'm going to say background gray 100, and the font sans, and then let's say initialized. Now the next thing we're going to do is to just bring in the nav bar, and then we're also going to have to bring in the Tailwind CSS CDN. So I'm just going to come back to all blogs, and I'm going to copy this right here. I'm going to paste that in there, and then for the nav bar I'm going to come back in here, and I'm just going to copy all of the nav bar content, and I'm going to paste it in here. So that is done. Now the next thing we need to do is to just take care of the main content of this particular page. Now this one is quite easy, and what I'm just going to do is that right here I'm going to say main content. I'm just going to comment that out. I'm just going to comment this out, and the next thing I'm going to do is to have one div tag, and I'm going to have another div tag, and in that other div tag I'm going to have a section tag, and in this I'm going to have an h2, and I'm going to have it say something like blog post details. And now for the class of this h2, I'm gonna do, let me just make sure I can see what I'm doing. So I'm gonna click on show preview, good, and I'm just gonna close this up a little bit, and then right here let's style this. So let's give it text XL, nice, and then MB4, and let's say font should be like semi bold, good. And then the next thing I'm gonna do is to create another div tag, And for this, I'm going to have an h3. And before I go into that h3, let me style this div tag. So this is going to have a border. Nice. And let's give the border a color. So let's say gray and 300. Nice. And let's say p4 so they can be spacing. And then we can say rounded LG. So this is good. And then the next thing we want to do in here, we're going to say blog post title. So this is where we're going to actually have the title of that blog post. And then let's style it. So for this, we can say, let's give it a class of text LG, and font should be semi-bold. Nice. And then the next thing we want to do is to have, right here, we're going to have a p tag. So the p tag is going to have the content of that particular blog post. So let me just say this is the content. And let's give it a class of text gray, just so we can distinguish the content from the title. And let's say 700. Cool. Now the next thing we want to have is like an HR, just to give it a line. And there we're going to have a class. And let's say my4, good. And border gray, let's say 300. Nice. And the next thing after that is an h4 tag, and here we're just going to have the YouTube title. So this is the title of the YouTube video. Let's style this, and for this, let's say text LG, and font let's say semi-bold. Good. And that should be okay for the title. And the next thing is to have the right here, I'm gonna have like a p tag. So this just says that this is the YouTube title, but then we have another p tag that actually shows that YouTube title. So we'll say title of the associated YouTube video. And it's not looking too good, so let's come here and let's say class. We'll say, let's just give it a gray color, 700, so it matches the other gray colors. And the next thing we want to do is to have an h4, and this is now the YouTube link. And let's give this a little bit of styling, so it's like, you know, so this should be similar to this YouTube title. So we'll say class, and for this we'll say text LG and font semi-bold. And one more thing is MT4. And the last thing we're going to have is the actual YouTube link. So let's just give that an A tag, and let's just give it like a demo YouTube link. Just https www.youtube.com. So let's just keep that as that, and let's give it a link for now. Let it go to hashtag, and let's give it some styling. So let's make sure that it comes out as blue, because right now it's just black. So we'll say text blue, and let's say 600. Good, that is good. And let's say over, let's give it over, so that when we over on it, because right now it doesn't show anything, when we over on it, we want it to show like an underline. So as you can see, that works. So this is what we need for this section. And we're just going to come back here to this div, and then we're going to give it like some styling, and this should just be similar to what was here initially. So if we come here, just going to copy all of these classes, and then we're going to paste that in here. So let's make sure we have class, paste that in there, and then we're going to do the same for this div tag. Copy the class, we're going to come here, and then we're going to paste it. So this is just giving it all the styling we need. but it's very similar to the other template, so we just decided to copy paste instead of typing it out again. So if I come here and look at what we've done till now, as you can see, everything looks fantastic. This says blog post details. This shows the actual title of the blog post, and this is the content, and then this is the says YouTube title, and this actually shows the YouTube title, and then this shows the YouTube link, and we'll make it so that a user can click on that link and then that particular video will open. The last thing we want to do is just to add the footer, and then for us to add the footer, that should be right before the end of body. We're going to come here and copy that footer tag. We're copying everything and then paste that in there. So that works successfully, and then let's just see right here. As you can see, we have the nav bar, we have the whole content, and we have the footer. So everything works perfectly fine. Now we're going to set up our Django project. So the first thing that I did was to create a new folder in this AI blog app folder that we created earlier in this course. Created a new folder named backend, and in this backend folder, I'm going to create my Django project in it. So I opened this up in VS Code right here. So this is just our browser, and this is VS Code. And in this particular VS Code folder, I'm going to create my Django project right here. So for me to do this, let me just open up a new terminal. So I'm just going to bring up a new terminal right here by doing this, and I'm just going to say Django admin start project, and then I can name the project AI blog app. And as you can see, a new project has been created. Now I'm going to cd into that project, so cd into AI blog app, and then what I'm going to do is to say ls to make sure I'm in there. Now I'm going to create a new Django app, Python 3 manage.py start app, and I'm just gonna name it blog generator. Now that we have that, if I come in here, you're going to see that I have the project, which is AI blog app, and the app, which is blog generator. Now I'm just going to open up this particular project in VS Code, because right now what I opened up was this backend folder, but what I want to open up is this folder, AI blog app. So I'm going to do that. I'm just going to say file, open folder, and in backend AI blog app. So this is what I want to open. Right here, you can see that we have that opened. I could just quit all of this. And now the first thing I'm going to do is to just make sure I set up everything correctly, such as like the URLs and stuff like that. So first I'm going to come into settings right in here, and under installed apps, I'm going to have to add this blog generator app, blog generator. And then the next thing I want to do is to come into templates, and in this template, I'm just going to add base there. Or actually, we're going to take care of this later. Let's leave this blank for now. When we're setting up all the integrating the front end template, we're going to take care of this. But for now, let's leave this as it is. The next thing I want to do is to take care of the URLs. So I'm going to come into the app, and I'm going to create a new file named urls.py. And from here, I'm going to say from django.urls import path to make sure, and then I'm going to have a new list named URL patterns, URL, and this URL pattern list is going to basically take a list of all the URLs that we have in our application. So for example, let me just explain what this is. So if we have like a website named mywebsite.com, that mywebsite.com is one URL. Then we could have another URL as mywebsite.com/login. That /login is another URL. So this URL patterns basically takes a list of all the different URLs we're going to have on this web application. So the first one is obviously the home page. So I'm just going to come in here, and to specify the home page in Django, what I just need to do is to put 2 quotes and then leave it blank. This means I'm trying to create a URL that is specified for the home page. Now I'm going to say views. I'm going to have to import from views. So once again, you should have a basic understanding of Django at least to be able to follow along with this tutorial. But if you don't, I'm going to try to explain everything that I'm doing. So now we're going to create import views. So I'm going to say from dot import views. Now this views is basically like the backend of our stuff. So when everything we're going to do is going to be done in this views.py file. That's what we imported. So what we are saying now is that whenever a user tries to go to the home page, we're going to go to views dot, let's say, index. So index is going to be a function that we're going to create in views.py. And then whenever a user tries to go to the home page, it's going to go into the views file and it's going to look for a function named index. And then whatever is being done in that function is what is going to be rendered for this URL. I hope that makes sense. You're going to see that practically in a bit. Now we're going to give it a name. So we're giving this URL a name. Let's just name this index. And then we could just say save. And for views, we're going to come in here. And now we're going to have to create that index function. And it's going to take a request. And for now, we're going to pass. Now, the reason that we are passing is because normally we're going to have to put our, our front end template. But for now, we haven't imported or integrated that into our application. So I'm just going to say pass for now. Now, the next thing I want to do is to specify this URL for our main project. Because right now I'm just saying, specifying everything in here in our URL patterns in the URLs file of our app. But the app is just a subset of the main project. So we need to tell the main project where to go look for the home page. To do this, we need to say include. So this include basically tells us that, let me just write it out and I'm going to explain what it does. So we're going to say whenever a user tries to go to the home page, include blog generator .urls. Now what this is doing is that whenever a user tries to go to the home page, this include basically says go into the blog generator app, look for a URLs file. So it's going to come into this blog generator app, it's going to look for urls.py, then it's going to look for a URL that matches what we put here. So what we put here was the home page, then it's going to come into this URL and look for the home page. So whatever is being done here is what is going to be rendered for the home page. So if we follow that chronologically, if we come back here, so a user tries to come to the home page, it includes blog generator.urls, which is blog generator.urls, and then it comes here and it goes into views.index. So it comes into views, into index, and in here, whatever we do here is what is going to be rendered for that home page. So the next thing that we're going to have to do is to basically set up the front end templates and the HTML files and all of that, so that whenever a user tries to come to the home page, they're going to see the HTML template. Now the next thing we need to do is to set up the front end. So we're going to come into our project's root folder and we're going to create a new folder named templates. Now this template folder is going to be where all of our HTML files is going to be located. Now how does Django know that this is where our HTML files are located? We have to tell it. So for us to tell Django that this is where it should look for all our HTML files, we have to come into this folder AI blog app. And under settings, we're going to come down here to templates, and then we're going to say base there, and I'm just going to say template. So what I'm just telling it is that whenever a user tries to access or render a template file, what you need to do is to go into the base directory, which is basically this root directory, and go into the folder named template. So it's going to come into this folder named templates to look for that particular HTML file. Now, I hope that makes sense. Now we could quit this file, and the next thing that we just need to do is to actually bring in or copy those templates that we created earlier in this course into this folder. So now I'm just going to drag all of that in here, and I'm just going to copy that. So I just copied all of this from my Finder on my MacBook, and I just pasted it right here in VS Code. So now we have all the HTML files, and what we can now do is to actually set up this particular index page. So now when a user tries to go to the home page, what we want to do is render this index.html template. So I'm going to say return render. I'm going to take a request and render index.html. Now this should work perfectly fine. I'm going to open up my terminal, and on here I'm going to say Python 3 manage.py run server. Now what this does is that it basically runs this project for us so we can see what we are building. I'm going to click enter, and it says that we should go to this particular server to see our project. So we're going to come into our browser, paste it, and let's see what it gives us. Boom. Now this is nice. As you can see, it gave us the HTML template that we worked on, and everything works successfully. Now the next thing we're going to do is to set up our database. So we're going to be using PostgreSQL database for this our application. But instead of just creating normal PostgreSQL on our computer, we're going to be using a managed Postgres database. Now a managed Postgres database is the best for production-based application, because once we're done with building, we can just go ahead and deploy our application without having to change anything about our database. So that's what is good about managed database. And what we're going to do is to use a platform called Covery to create this managed database. Now you can use, there are various platforms that provide this, but I recommend this because I have used this. So I'm going to show you how to go through the process of creating a managed database. So it's kind of like a Postgres database that is hosted on the cloud, and then you can access it with your project. So Covery is just it's a platform that provides all these like cloud-based features. So anything you need, like database, deploying your application and stuff like that, they provide all of that. So what you need to do is to go to console.covery.com, and once you go to console.covery.com, you just log in. You can log in with your GitHub or your GitLab. So I logged in with my GitHub, and it's going to bring you to this particular page right here. Now the first thing we're going to do is to create a new environment, and you can name this, I'm just going to say new env, something like that, and click on your cluster. You could click on automatic cluster, but I already created a cluster name project work, and this is basically already connected to my AWS account. So I'm going to leave like a documentation in the description that shows you how to connect your AWS account to this, so that everything that you're doing on Covery will be deployed on your AWS account. So what I'm just going to do is to leave a documentation or an article in the description below, so you can see that. That takes like 2 minutes to do, and once you've done that, you can create a new cluster, or you can just use automatic, but I'm using this cluster that I created, and I'm just going to click on create. So now this is my new environment. The next thing I want to do is just to create a new database straight away. I'm going to click on new service, and I'm going to click on create database. Now database name, I'm just going to say blog database. I'm going to leave the description optional, and we're going to leave this as managed mode. And for the database type, it's going to be PostgreSQL, and we're going to use the latest version. And for the accessibility, right, what we're going to do for accessibility is to leave it for now as public, and let's just continue. And we're going to leave this the way it is and click continue, and then we're just going to click on create and deploy. Now it says your database is deploying, and as you can see, it says deployment queued. So we're going to wait a bit for that database to deploy, and when it's done, I'm going to be back. So now as you can see, it says that that particular blog database has been deployed. Now we need to connect this Postgres database to our Django application. For us to do this, we're going to come back in here, and then we're going to click on these credentials. So these credentials is basically everything we need to connect to our Django application. Basically all the connection details for this Postgres database. But before we even use this, I'm going to come back into this Django project, and I'm going to go into settings.py, and in here I'm going to scroll down to where I have my database. So I don't need this. What I'm just going to do is to copy this and paste, and I'm just going to comment this out, and right here this is going to be the same, but the only thing that is going to be different is this particular django.db.backend.sqlite. So this is the engine. We're not going to be using SQLite for the engine, we're going to be using PostgreSQL. So you just need to change that to django.db.backends.postgresql. Now for the name, we're going to leave this blank for now. We're going to come back to this, and then the next thing we're going to have is the user. So we're going to have the user, and we're also going to leave this blank for now. So all of these details I'm leaving blank. We're going to get it from these credentials, and I'm going to show you how. Now the next thing is the password, and then also blank for now. and the next thing will be the host, and just gonna leave that like that, and the last thing is the port, leave that like that. Now what I need to do is to get all the details, so I'm going to come back in here and click on credentials. So let's first make sure we have everything set up. So we have the engine, we have the name, we have the user, we have the password, the host, and the port. Now these are all the details you need to connect to any Postgres database. Now let me just close this up, and what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to paste in what I just copied. So as you can see, when we copied these credentials, it came in this format, which is kind of a weird format, but I'm going to show you how to decode it and get all of these details from this particular credential that we copied. So the first thing is discovery admin. This and this is basically the user password combination. So this is the user, and then right here or to before this @ sign, that is the password. So we're just going to copy this discovery admin and paste it as the user. And then for the password, after this colon, we're going to start from there, and then we're going to end at just before the @ sign. So that is the password, and we're just going to paste in the password. And the next thing we want to get is the host. So after the @ sign, all the way to .com, that is the host. So as you can see, this is the host. It ends at .com. And we're just going to come back in here and paste in the host. And then for the port 5432, I'm just going to copy that and paste that in here. Now we can just get rid of this credential. Now the last thing is the name. So the name of the database will be Postgres. We're just going to save that. Now that we have this done, we're going to try and see if everything worked successfully. I'm going to open up a new terminal, and right here I'm just going to click on create new. Let's make sure we are in our page, which is manage.py. And I'm going to do python free manage.py, make migrations. So this is how we migrate our database in Django. And I'm going to do python free manage.py migrate. So this migrate is what is going to actually migrate to our particular database. So we're just going to give it a few seconds to migrate. So as you can see, everything is working successfully. It is migrating everything that we need, and it's going to take us a few seconds, and that should be migrated successfully. So good. So as you can see, it didn't give us any error, although it took a little bit of time, which is like 10 seconds, but everything migrated successfully. So that means we've successfully connected this our Django application to this managed database right here. Now, how do we even know that we've connected? What can we see? How can we see our database? So the first thing that we're going to be able to do is two things. So we can either use the Django admin panel to view all our database to make sure that everything is connected successfully, or we can open up pgadmin, and on pgadmin we can basically use pgadmin to just view our database. So we can put in all of these credentials, and then we'll be able to view our database. So we can do any of the two. But for now, this has been successfully connected. So if I cut out of this server and then I run it again, you now see that I don't have this red warning that we had before. Before we had this red warning, now we don't have that again because we have connected our database successfully. Now right here, I just have pgadmin open. If you don't know what pgadmin is, it's kind of like an interface where you can see your Postgres database, edit and do whatever you want with it. So you can download it from Chrome or from your browser. Just search up download pgadmin. Now normally when you install PostgreSQL on your machine, you should have pgadmin installed automatically. So just search up pgadmin on your computer and then open it up. So I open this up and I'm just going to expand this. Now what I want to do is that I want to verify that we've actually connected to this database. So remember that if I come back here, remember that everything right here was migrated. So all of this data that was migrated, all of this user, as you can see, we had user migrated, auth, admin, all of this. We're going to cross check if that is present in this particular database. So if that is present, that means we've successfully migrated and connected our database and our Django application together. So I'm just going to close this and I'm going to come back here, and right here, so as you can see, we have, so we could just input the password, and it says databases. So what I can just do now is to click on, or I'm going to right click on database, and I'm going to create a new database. Or actually, no, what I'm going to do is to just connect to a server. We're not creating a database. We already have like a database server created. We're just going to connect to that. So right here, I'm just going to say register a new server, and it's going to ask me for all the information. So I'm just going to come back here, and name is going to be Postgres, and we're going to come here and we're going to go to connection. So for the host, this host is going to be this particular detail. I'm just going to paste that, and the port is 5432, which is right, and the username right here is Covery admin. So this is the database name, which is Postgres, which is that. And then the password, we just need to copy all of this password right here. And then I'm just going to paste in the password, and everything should work. But right here, I'm just going to say something like Covery Postgres database. Now, once I say save, it should create that. And once I expand this and come into databases, you can now see that I have 3 databases actually. I have one named Postgres, I have one named this, and I have one named RDS admin. But this Postgres was the one that we connected to our Django application. I'm going to expand that, and under schemas, I'm going to come right here and go into tables. Now, as you can see, all of the Django database has been migrated. So we have the user database, the groups database, the Django admin, everything has been migrated in here. That just tells us that everything is working. If I right click now and I click on view data and say all rows, you're going to see that it shows us every single row. Although we don't have any row right now, any data in there, because we just created it, but you can see that it shows us every single thing that we need for this particular database. So this is how we can verify that we have successfully connected and migrated our database. Now the next thing we're going to do is to take care of authentication. So we want a user to be able to log in to our application, register on our application, and also log out of our application. Now let's just go ahead and get started with that. Now before we do that, the first thing I'm going to do is to introduce you to the Django admin panel. So this is where we can basically see everything in the backend of our application, like all our databases, every single groups and stuff like that. So for us to access that admin panel, we need to create a user that can access it. So if I come here and I go to my website /admin, it's going to introduce me to this panel. But we don't have any details that can be able to log into this panel. So what we need to do is to create those admin details right here in our terminal. To do this, we'll say python free manage.py create super user. Now this means create a user that can access this admin page. Now it says python 3. Okay, so there is an error here, and yeah, so I'm just going to say admin. Just going to leave this blank. I'm going to give a password, and they just bypass that. And now we have an admin user. So we're going to use that details we just created, admin, and we're going to give it the password. And now you can see that we are able to access the admin page. Good. So in this admin page, instead of like opening up PG admin every single time, we can just view all our database here, like all our users. And when we also create other databases later in this course, we're going to be able to view all of that here. So I clicked on user, and we only have one user, which is the admin user for now. But now let's take care of authentication, as I said. So we want a user to be able to register on our website. And when they register on our website, we're going to come here and cross-check if that user's data has been saved in our database. So that's why I introduced you to this panel. Now I'm just going to open up this in another tab. So right here, I'm just going to open up the normal page. We have the normal page here. We have the admin panel right here. So what I'm going to do is to come into URLs. So not this URL, but the one of our app. And I'm just going to copy and paste this 3 times. So this is going to be login. This is going to be sign up. And this is going to be log out. So views.login. And we're going to give you a name of login. and views.signup, we're going to give it a name of signup. Views.logout, we're going to give it a name of logout. We need to make sure we have a comma right here because this is a list. Now what this is saying is that whenever a user tries to go to the login page, which is /login, go into views.login and then do whatever is being done there. So right now I'm pretty sure that we're going to have an error. That's just because it's saying, as you can see, our application is no more running because it's saying that views has no attribute to login. So right now if we come into views.py, there's no function named login, so we need to create that. So I'm actually just gonna do dev login. I'm gonna take a request and then I'm gonna pass. I'm gonna do the same for sign up request. I'm gonna pass for now, and I'm gonna do the same for logout. I'm gonna take a request and I'm gonna pass. So this is what we need. Now the next thing that we need to do is to basically just straight away go ahead with signing up the user and doing most of the major stuff. So what I'm gonna do is right here. So what I want to do, just because whenever so later in this course, when we are importing some libraries, that library is going to have a function named sign up, login, logout, and all of that. So because we don't want that to clash, we don't want there to be a clash of name, I'm going to change this to user login. I'm going to change this to user sign up, and for the logout I could also change it to user logout. And I'm just going to come into my views and then update all of that. Sorry, into my URLs. Just going to be views.user login, views.user sign up, and then views.user logout. I hope that makes sense. Save this. I'm going to come here and save this. Now the next thing that we're going to do is to come in here and say for login we want to return. So I'm just going to open up this page right here. Instead of just saying pass, we want to return this login.html page. So return render request login.html. We're going to do exactly the same thing for sign up. Return render request, and we're going to say sign up.html. And for user logout, we're just going to still pass for now. Now if I save this, and when I come here and let's say I go to /login, as you can see now we're able to access our login page. If I go to /signup, we're able to access our sign up page, which is good. This is what we want. So now the next thing we want to do is to come into our sign up. So we're going to get started with signing up first, and right here in sign up we're going to come all the way down here, and right here where we see login and sign up, we want the user to be able to click there and go to our login page, and we're just going to say sign up. If I hit refresh and I click on login, it takes me to the login page. We're going to come into login and do exactly the same thing. So we're going to say login and then we're going to say sign up. And then I'm just going to close that for the login. And I'm just going to come into index also. So if I come into index right here, if I click on logout, it doesn't go anywhere. So I could change that right now. And I'm just going to say that should go to logout. We're going to take care of this later as we move on. So we're going to come back to sign up. And right here in sign up, we have a form. So we have this form right here that says sign up. That is basically our sign up form. And this is the form that collects all the sign up details and sends it to the HTML page. So we're going to have to take care of this form. It sends it to the backend. So we're going to take care of this form right now. So what we're going to do is to give it an action. And if we leave this blank, this means that we're trying to send this data back to this page. So that is what we want. And for the method, we want to use a post method. Now there are two methods you can use, post and get. So for this type of form, we should use a post method because it's more secure, and this is like sensitive information, so we don't want to use get for this. And whenever we use a post method in Django, we must have something named CSRF token. Now that this stands for cross-site request forgery, so it's like an attack that can be put on your application, but this basically prevents that. Now the next thing that we're going to do is to create an error message. So what I'm going to do is just to have a div tag here. I'm just going to have a new div tag, and in here I'm going to have h2, and I'm just going to have like an error message. I'm just going to say error, and I'm going to style it a little bit. I'm just going to put it to the center. And for the style, I'm just going to make the color red. So if I come back in here and go back here and hit refresh, you can now see that we have error. So basically, if a user tries to sign up with like, like let's say a username that's already been taken, or the password doesn't correlate, that error is going to pop up here. But we don't want this to just show. We only want this to show whenever there is an error. So for now, we're just going to have this and say error message underscore message. Now this is like a variable that we're going to pass from our views right here, and whenever we're doing that, I'm going to reference it and come back and show you how that was done. So I only want this to show if there is an error message. So I'm going to do if error message. So that means if there is a variable named error message that was passed in from our function right here, that means there is an error. Then we want to show that error. So let's just say end if, and then we're just going to leave it like this. We could do this to make it look neat. And now the next thing we want to do is to make sure that all of these particular inputs have a name and an ID, because that is what we're going to use to get the values right here in our function. So as you can see, the username has a name of username, name of email, name of password, and name of repeat password. So all of that is working perfectly for now. Now what this means is that we can come into our views.py, and then we can get all of this data. So anything a user input in here, it will be sent in here, so we can get it as a variable. So what we want to do is to say if request.method is equals to post. So what I'm saying is that if a user tried to come to this page using a post method, that means they are submitting a form. Now whenever I come to this page and just click enter, this page is being rendered to me using a get method, right? The only time that this page is going to be rendered using a post method is when we are submitting a form, and that is because we used a method of post in this form. So that means if the request for this page is being done using a post method, that means a user is trying to sign up. That means a user clicked on sign up button and they are trying to register themselves on our application. So if that is true, then we want to get all the details that the user wrote. So we want to get the username, we want to get the email, we want to get the password, and we want to get a repeat password. So we want to get all of this. Now what we're going to do to actually get it is to say request.post username. Now this is just going to get the value of this input right here, which is basically this right here, and then it's going to store it in a variable named username. I'm going to do the same for email, request.post, and then we're just going to say email. We're going to do exactly the same thing for password and repeat password. I'm going to copy that and paste it, copy this and paste it. Now what we're going to do is to say if these passwords are equal. So we're first going to check to make sure that the user inputted or wrote the same password in these fields. So we're going to come here and say if password is equals to repeat password, if that is true, then we're going to do something else. That means if this is not true, if the password is not equal, then we want to send an error. So now remember right here where we created this error message variable, we're going to come here and say error message will be equals to password do not match. And then we're going to render this page again, but this time around, we're going to render it, giving it the error message. Request sign up.html. And now we're going to say error message. We're going to give it a value of error message. So what this is just saying is that if a user doesn't input the same password, let's just do this, then it's going to create a new variable named error message, and it's going to give it a value of password do not match, and then it's going to return that page, basically this sign up page, but this time around giving it an error message. So that is what it is doing. So right here it says there is an error. So let's see what error there is. So right here we don't have a comma. That is the error, and this should be good to go. But now, as you can now see, since an error message variable has been passed, it's going to come here. This is now true because we said if there is a variable named error message that was passed into this template, then show all of this and show the error message. But if that didn't happen, if the passwords are equal, then we're going to try to create the user. We're going to say user equals to, first of all, we need to import user right here. So we're going to say from Django.contrib.auth.models import user. And then we're also going to say from Django.contrib.auth import authenticate. We also want to import login, or we want to import logout. So remember when I said there will be a clash in functions? This is what I meant. So if we had created this function naming it login, and then we're also importing login, there might be a clash. And we want to import something else named, we'll say from Django.shortcut import render and redirect. So we already have render imported here, but let's just remove that. And I think that is what we need for now. So we have all of this, and then what we're just going to do is to come back in here to this page, to this function I mean, and then under this try except that we did, what we're just going to do is to try to create a new user, and then we're just going to say user equals to user. So we're taking from the user that we imported dot objects. So this is how you create a new user, dot create underscore user, and then we're going to create it using the username, email, and we're just going to use one password. So we could use any password of the two since they are equal, and password. And then we're going to say user.save, and then we want to log in. So this login that we imported right here is basically allowing us to log a user in using their details. So we're going to say login. So after saving that user and creating them, we then want to log them into our application automatically, so they don't have to start logging in again. So login, we're going to take a request and we're going to log in this user. And after that, after logging them in, we want to redirect them. So we're going to say return redirect back to the home page. Now, if this doesn't work, if there's an error creating the account, now this might mean maybe the username is taken or the email is taken or something. Then we just want to create another error message and say error creating account. Now you can go further by checking if the email is taken or the username is taken, and then specifying detailed error message for every single situation. You can also do that, but for now we're just going to stick to this. And what I'm just going to do is to copy this and paste it right here. So this is what we need. So then we want to return this message if there was an error, and this should work. And let's just save this now and go ahead and try this. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to click on users. So I'm just going to do this to check, to make sure that a new user has been registered on our application. So click on refresh. and let's just say Tommy at gmail.com. Let's just give it a random password. Don't use. Sign up. Now, as you can see, it brought me back to this page. That means I was signed up successfully. But let's come to our admin panel and hit refresh to check if someone was registered there. As you can see, it says you are authenticated as Tommy. This is a sign that it has been successfully created and I have been logged in. But it says you are not authorized to access this page. Would I like to log in as a different account? This is because, as I said, the admin panel is only restricted to admin users. And Tommy is just a normal user that I created on the website. So I have to log in back as admin to be able to access this page. And then I'm just going to log in. And as you can see right here, we have a new user named Tommy. So that was created successfully. If I click on the user right here, you're going to see details of that user, like when it was created and stuff like that. The only thing you can't see is a user password, which is reasonable. So you can see every single thing. The last time you logged in, the last time, the date you joined, and stuff like that. Now, the next thing that we're going to be implementing is the login. So we want a user to be able to log into our application. Now, if I come into this login page, right here, there's a form, and we want that when a user fills this form and clicks on login, there's either going to give them an error message or log them into our application. Now, let's do that. The first thing we need to do is to come into login.html. We're going to open it up from here. And if we come down here, you can see we have a form too. It's very similar to the sign up. And we're going to give it an action. We're going to let the action come back to this page. So we're going to give it a method of post. Now, whenever we use a post method, we need to have CSRF token. Now, the next thing we're going to do is to come into sign up. And I'm just going to copy all of this particular error message tag. Now I just copy and pasted that error message tag right here so that we have it right here in the login page. Now the next thing that we're just going to do is to make sure that this input has a name and ID. So right here you can see it has ID username and name username, ID password, name password. Now I'm going to save this and come back to views. Right here in login, I'm just going to say the same thing I did in sign up by saying if request dot method is equals to post, then we're going to want to get the username and then the password. So instead of typing it out, I'm just writing it again. I'm just copying and pasting it. Now we're going to have to use this authenticate that we imported. Now this authenticate is basically going to check if this user name and password match is in our database. So we're going to create a new variable named user. Not this, we're going to say user. So we're going to say authenticate. Authenticate is going to take a request, and we're going to say username equals to username. So we're saying the username that you're checking is this username, and then we're going to say the same for password by saying password is equals to password. Now the next thing it's going to do is to say it's going to check if this user is present. So we're now going to say if user is not none. So what this means is that if this user is not none, that means it's not blank. That means there is a user right there with these parameters in our database. That means log that user in. So we're going to say login. So now this login that we imported now actually logs the user in. So request and then user. Now remember when I said I had to change this to user login instead of just login? If I left this at login and I'm also importing another function named login, there might be a clash. That's why I had to change this to user login. I had to change this to user sign up. Now that we log the user in, we want to redirect them. So say return redirect to the home page after logging them in. So redirect is giving us error. This is because we don't have it installed. Actually, we do have it imported. So this should be return, not request. So return redirect and that. Now, if the user is none, that means the user is not there. Then we want to create an error message and we're just going to say invalid username or password, and then we're going to return render request login.html, but this time around we're going to use send it a variable named error message and give it a value of error message. Now this should work successfully. Let's try this out. Now we're going to come back in here, and right here we're just going to say, let's first hit refresh, and we're going to say Tommy and Tommy, and you click on login, and right here for us to know that this was logged in successfully, if I come up here, you can see that it says welcome Tommy, which is the user we just created. Now right now we don't have anything for the logout, so we're going to take care of that. Now let me show you what is showing this. If I come back in here and go to index.html, right here I created a new thing on the nav bar, so I created a new option, but this option is not clickable, and I gave a value of welcome user.username inside 2 curly braces. Now using this format, it basically gets the user's username, the currently logged in user, it gets the username and then shows it there. If I say user.email, you're going to see that right here it's just going to show the user's email. So we just want the username. Now that's how to do that if you want to. Now the next thing that we're going to do is to now take care of the logout. So once a user clicks on logout, we want to be able to log them out of our page. Now what we're just going to do is to come in here. So let's just refresh this to make sure that this changes back to Tommy. Good. If we come in here, right here in logout, this is the easiest part of the authentication process. What we just need to do is to use this logout that we imported from django.contrib.auth, and right here we're just going to say logout request. So it's basically, what this means is that it's logging out whoever is logged in, so we don't even need to give it like the username or anything. It's just going to get if someone is being logged in. If someone is logged in, it's going to log them out. Now after logging them out, we want to redirect them back to the home page. Now what we want to do is that after it logs out and redirect them back to the home page, we want only a user that has been logged in to access this home page. Before we do that, let's first cross check to make sure that this logout works. So logout, so it's going to bring us back to this page, but you can see it says welcome, but it doesn't say anything because no one is logged in. But we don't want a user that is not logged in to be able to access this page. So what we're going to do right now is to come here and use something named a decorator in Django. So we're going to say from django.contrib.auth.decorators import login required. Now this login required decorator means that it allows only currently logged in users, or only a user that is logged in, to access a particular view. So for in this situation, we want that view to be this index page, which is the home page. So to do this, we're going to come here and just say at login decorator, at login required. Now this means that only a user that is logged in can access this index view. Now the next thing that we're going to do is to tell Django where to redirect the user, because if a user is not logged in and they try to access this index page, it's going to redirect them back to the login page to first login, then bring them back here. So, but right now Django doesn't know what login URL to redirect them to. Now for us to tell Django, what we're just going to need to do is to come into the settings.py. So we're going to come right here, go into settings.py, and all the way on the bottom, we're going to create a new variable named login underscore URL, and it's going to be equals to login. So this is just saying that we're going to the login URL, which is basically this URL right here. Now let's try it out. Now let me just hit refresh on this page. As you can see, it redirects me back to the login page. Now everything has been taken care of regarding authentication. Now the next thing we're going to do is to create a new view right here named generate blog underscore blog. Gonna take a request, and for now we're just going to pass. Now what this particular view is going to do is that once a user inputs a YouTube link here and clicks on generate, That YouTube link is going to be sent to this generate blog view, and then we're going to transcribe. We're going to basically get the transcript of that YouTube video, and from that transcript we're going to generate an article from that transcript. All of that is going to be done in this view right here. Now what I'm going to do is to come into urls.py, and in urls.py we need to create a new URL, and we need to name that generate blog. So I'm just going to come here, copy the name, and this is going to be generate-blog, and views.generate-blog, and this is going to be generate-blog. So this is good. This is what we need. Now what we want to do now is to use JavaScript right here in our index.html. Now right here we're going to have a script under here, and this script is basically gonna do a lot of things. First of all, once a user clicks on generate, it's gonna load up this loading cycle. If we come back in here, you're gonna see that we have a loading cycle styling that we created, but we made the display none because we don't want that to show yet. Only when the user clicks on generate, we want that to keep showing until the blog article has been generated. So the first thing that we're going to do is to make sure that once a user clicks on generate, that blog article shows, and then we're going to get the details of whatever the user input in this particular input bar, and in this situation it is this particular input bar here. And then once we get that, we're going to send that details to this views.py. So we're going to first send it to this generate blog URL, and that's going to be sent to views.generate blog, and then we can receive that information here, and then we can do whatever we want to do from that. So now let's just go ahead and do that. So right here in index.html, what I'm going to do is to just paste in a JavaScript. So I'm just going to paste in a script right here, and just going to overwrite all of this and paste that in. So I'm going to explain what all of this does step by step. Now right here you can see that the first thing that we're doing is saying document.getElementById generate blog button. So we're first adding an event listener on this particular button. So we're saying that whenever a user clicks on this button, then as you can see it says .add event is listener. So once a user clicks on it, then we're going to do all of this that we want to do. So this script is only triggered once a user click generate. The next thing is to get the YouTube link. So it's going to get ElementById YouTube link. So you remember, if we come in here, the ID of this input bar, which is this input bar right here, is named YouTube link. So we're going to get the element. So we're going to get the value, which is basically whatever the user input here. And then remember the loading indicator. We're also going to get that. And then the next thing that we're going to get is the blog content. So if I come back in here, there's a space for the blog content. This is so that when we've generated the article, this is where the article is going to be shown. This is that right here. And the next thing we're going to do is to say if there is a YouTube link, that means if we successfully got a YouTube link value, then we want to set the style, the display of that loading cycle to block. So we then want to show that loading cycle, and then we want to say load indicator.classList.remove hidden, and then block content.innerHTML, we want to clear it. So whatever was here before, we want to clear it. Right now there's nothing, but imagine we put a YouTube link, we click generate, then we put another YouTube link and generate again. We first want to clear the initial blog article that was there before another blog article is created. That's why we do this, to clear the previous content. And now we are setting an endpoint. So this is the endpoint URL that we're going to be sending the value of this particular form to. So that URL is generate blog, which is what we created right here, generate blog. Now the next thing we're going to do is to use try and catch. So what we're going to do is to basically use fetch to send this particular value right here, this link, using a post method to this endpoint. So that is what all of this is doing. And it's for the body, that means the value that is actually being sent is using JSON to send the YouTube link as a value of link. So this YouTube link is basically this variable that we created here, which is the value of this input bar. And then we're just going to wait for a response basically and store that response in a data, in a variable name data. So once this is being sent to this endpoint, which is basically this particular view, once we've done everything, all the processing, we're going to return a response, and that response is going to be stored in this variable name data. And then we're going to say block content.innerHTML equals data.content. So what we're saying is block content, which is this particular div, which is basically whatever is under here. Then we want to set its inner HTML to data.content. So what we're just saying is whatever response we got, we want to showcase that in the block content div. And now we can add hidden back. And now we're going to catch. So if there was an error, we're just going to say error occurred, and then we're going to alert by saying something went wrong. And then after all of this, what we want to do is to set this display back to none. So that means once we've sent all of this data to the backend and we've received the response, then we want to set the value of the loading cycle to none so that it doesn't keep loading even after the processing has been done. Now we have an else. So if this YouTube link, if we did not get a YouTube link, that means if there is no value, then we want to say please enter a YouTube link. Now this should be working. This is all the script we need for this particular home page. The next thing we want to do is to actually come into views.py, and under generate blog, we first want to do one crucial thing. So remember that whenever we're using a post method, if I come back in here, you're going to see that the method we're using to submit this data is post. We have to send in a CSRF token. But in this case, we didn't send in a CSRF token, so that's going to throw us an error. To avoid this error, there are two things we can do. We can either specify the CSRF token here, or we could just use CSRF exempt. So this means that for this particular view, we can exempt requiring a CSRF token. So I'm going to do the latter. I'm going to use CSRF exempt, and what I'm just going to do is to say from Django .views .decorator. I'm going to correct this. So from Django.views.decorators.csrf, we want to import CSRF exempt, and then right here we can just do at right here at CSRF exempt. Now this is not going to require CSRF token for this particular view. Normally if you're in production, you really need to add CSRF token, but for now we can just do this. So the next thing that we're going to do is to first say if request.method is post. So if some data is being submitted, it's equals to post, then we're going to do some stuff. For now it's going to be pass and else. That means if it's not a post method, then there's no way we are even trying to access this view without a post method, because it's not a normal like page or a normal URL. It's only a URL specified for when a user submits or clicks on this generate button. That is when it is triggered. So if there is no, it's not being sent using a post method, then we're going to return a JSON response. So for us to reuse JSON response, we're going to have to come here and say from Django.http import JSON response. So now we can use that in here, and we're just going to say, so right here we're just going to say return, and then we're just going to return a JSON response. So we're just going to say JSON response, and then we're going to give it, just going to make sure you can see that, give it error, and we're going to say something like invalid request method, because we don't want the user to be trying to access this using a get method. That's why we say that. And let's say status, you can set that status to 405. So this should work successfully. For now we're just going to save this. So this is all we need for setting up this JavaScript stuff and making sure that everything sends successfully to this page. And what I'm just going to do is to get that detail. So the first thing I'm going to do is come here and try to extract that YouTube link from this index.html. I'm just going to bring that in here. So remember this YouTube link, I'm going to try to extract it from this JSON because we sent in a JSON value. So I'm going to try to extract it from that JSON value. So I'm going to say try. Let me pass first of all, then I'm going to say accept. I'm going to pass again. So try data equals JSON dot loads. I'm going to say request dot body. So right now we need to import JSON to be able to use it. So what we just need to do is to scroll up and say import JSON. That's literally all we need to do. It's that easy. And I'm just going to come back in here. Now we can use JSON.load and request.body. So request.body, remember, is basically this body right here, and the value of this JSON is what is stored in here. So then we're saying request.load and store it in a variable named data. Now we are going to say YT. So let's say something like YouTube link equals to data. So this data now is kind of like, think of it like a dictionary, because when we do JSON.load, it basically converts that JSON value into a dictionary, Python dictionary. So we can now say data, and let's see the name we gave it. Right here we gave it link. So we're going to say data square brackets link. So the value of the YouTube link is now stored in this YT underscore link variable. And we're just going to say except. So we want to have a specific except. So we're going to say except key error JSON decode error. That means there's a problem with the JSON value that was passed. Then we're going to return. So I'm just going to copy this, and I'm just going to say return JSON response, and the error is going to be invalid data sent. And then for a status, I'm going to give it 400. So this is what we need right here. And for now, we can save it. But before we say, let's just save it. But before we move on, there are a few things that we're going to do. And let's just comment this, add a comment so we can come back later to do them. So we're just going to say we want to get the title of the video, and we want to get the transcript. And after getting a transcript, we want to use OpenAI to generate the blog. So these are the three things we want to do. Just going to comment this out. These are the three things we want to do. And then after using OpenAI to generate the blog, we also want to save blog article to database. And yeah, that is what we want to do. And I think the last thing that we're going to do is just return blog article as a response. So this is all we need to do. It's kind of like a to-do list for this particular view. And for now, we've successfully done the script and made everything work. So I think what I'm just gonna do right now is to come in here, and I'm just gonna basically say, okay, right here, I'm gonna return a JSON response. So right here, I'm just gonna say return JSON response, and I'm gonna say content equals YT link. Now if I come in here and let's say I put, let me hit refresh, and I'm just gonna put random thing, say generate. Now let's see what happens. This keeps rolling, but it doesn't stop. So I think for now we're gonna take care of that, but for now I think the fact that this keeps rolling, this starts rolling, is good. But let's see when it's meant to stop. So this is meant to stop rolling at this point right here, none, when we get a response, and that response should be block content equals data.content, and then we are meant to put that content, which is what we did right here. So let's see, that should we're going to take care of that in a bit, but for now everything works successfully and we're going to move on to the next step. Now the next thing that we need to do is to first get the title of the YouTube video, and we're going to be using a particular Python library called PyTube. And then once we do that, we're going to be getting a transcript. So first of all, let's get the title of the YouTube video. So what we need to do is to first come here and say from PyTube import YouTube. So you need to make sure you have PyTube installed. For you to do that, you just need to open up your terminal right here. You can just come here and type pip3 install PyTube. But I already have it installed, so I'm just not going to install that. But for you, you should go ahead and install that. Now I'm just going to come back here and close this. Now we can use that particular Python library, and I'm just going to say, I'm going to create a new function to create this, to run this. And what it's just going to be is after this, I'm just going to come here and say def YouTube title link. It's going to take a link, and we're going to set a new variable named yt equals to YouTube, and then going to give it link, and then title will be equals to yt.title, and then we're just going to return title. So now this function is going to get the title of a YouTube video. So now what we're just going to do is to come back in here and use that particular function. Just going to copy this, and then right here I'm just going to say title, that is the YouTube title, is equals to YouTube title, but then I'm going to give it the link, which is YouTube link. So right here, this is what we have, YouTube link. So this should work successfully. It should work. So now the next thing that we're just going to do is to get the transcript of this particular YouTube video. So right now we're going to be using a platform named AssemblyAI. I'm going to come into the browser and show you this platform. So AssemblyAI is basically a website or a platform that allows you to have a lot of audio or speech based features. So for example, something like turning an audio file to get it to text, like getting the transcript. It allows you to do that. It allows you to do a lot of AI powered stuff also, like speech summarization, it's sentiment analysis, so it can tell you whether a particular audio is, the sentiment in there is negative or positive. And there are also a lot of features you can do, but for this video we're going to be using the transcription feature, and that just allows us to get the transcript of a particular YouTube video. So you just need to go to assemblyai.com, sign up, and then it's going to take you to your home page, and right here this is what you're going to see. And right here you're going to have something called an API token. You just need to copy that token, and we're going to use that token later in this tutorial. Now what we're going to do is to first get the transcription of a particular YouTube video. So for us to do this, what we first need to do is to get the mp3 file. So we're basically going to kind of like download the audio file of that YouTube video first, and then once we download the audio file of that YouTube video, the next thing we're going to do is then get the transcript of that audio file. So right here it says it can't see this YouTube title. I'm sure that is because the function is after this, but that should still work. But if it doesn't work, we're just going to move this function above this particular function. So now the next thing is to get the transcript, and then what we're just going to do to be able to get transcript right here is we're going to create a new function, and then we're just going to name it something like get transcription. So right here I'm going to say def get underscore transcription, and it's going to take a link also. And what we're going to do is to get the audio file. So we need to get the audio file of that particular YouTube link, and then once we get the audio file, then we can get the transcript. So for now, let's pass this. I'm just gonna comment it out. So we need to create, so I'm just gonna say pass. we need to create another function that basically downloads the audio for us, and that function is what we're then going to access in here to basically show us the audio file. Now what we're just going to do is to create a new function, and I'm just going to come up here and say def download underscore audio. So we're going to be using this PyTube that we imported, that we installed. So def, and then the next thing we're going to do is to say yt equals to YouTube. Remember the YouTube we imported, link. And now we want to extract just the audio. So we're going to say something like video equals to yt.streams.filter. I want to filter it to only the audio file. I'm going to say that is equals to true dot first. Now the next thing we want to do is download that audio file. We're just going to say out file, creating a new variable now named out file. We're going to say video.download. And for the output part, so what we need to do is to set like a path where these files will be downloaded. So we're going to say settings.media root. So first of all, we need to import settings, and what we're just going to do is to come here and say from django.conf import settings. But right in settings, there's nothing named media root, so we actually need to go into the settings.py file of this project. We're just going to open this up and go into settings.py, and when we scroll down to the bottom, I'm just going to paste in something and explain what that does. So right above this right here, I'm going to paste this in, and I need to import OS. So what I'm just going to do is to import OS, and then right here, I'm going to scroll down, and right here we're saying media URL is equals to /media, and we're saying the root file is os.path.join base there media. What this is saying is that anytime we are trying to work with any media file, such as audio files, video files, any external media file, let's say we want to download a media file or save a media file, it's going to be saved into a folder named media that is in our root directory. Similarly to how we configured the templates right here where we said root directory /templates, that's what we are doing for media. So now we need to make sure we have that folder created. We're going to say media. That is good. Now we can close this, and then we can come back into our views. And then what we now want to do is to, since we already know that we've specified the media root, which is the URL path to what we want to create, now we can go ahead in making sure that that is basically saved. So since what we did was we did video.download and then video.download that, and the output part is media root. So now we want to save the file. So this is how we save it. We say base ext equals to os.path.split text. So this should be os split text. So we need to make sure we import os right here. So I'm just going to import os, and so right here where we say dot split text, and then we're just going to say out file. Now that does the job. And now we're going to create a new file equals to base, which is this, plus .mp3. So this is the name of the file, but then .mp3 is the extension because it is an audio file. Now I'm going to say os.rename out file as new file. Now this should work, and what we just want to do is to return new file. That is what we want. And now we can come back in here to use, so where we add this get transcription, we can now come back in here to use that audio file. So I can get rid of this now, and I can remove the comment. So audio file now should be equals to download audio. And now since we already have the link passed here as link, we could give it the link. Now that is the file that is downloaded. So we already have the audio file of that YouTube video. Now the next thing we need to do is to first of all you install the AssemblyAI Python library before we can use it to transcribe, because now we have that audio file downloaded. So we're going to use AssemblyAI to actually get the transcript of that audio file. So we need to first come in here and say import AssemblyAI, and let's import it as AAI so we don't have to keep typing AssemblyAI every single time. Now once again, you need to make sure you have AssemblyAI installed. Just run pip3 install AssemblyAI, and that is going to do the work for you. Now once you have that done, the next thing you want to do is to come back to this get transcript, and under get transcript we're going to use AssemblyAI. But before we can use it, we need to set our API key. So we're going to say aai.settings right here .api key. So remember, so we're going to say equals to is a variable. Remember when I told you to copy a particular API key from here? Now that is the token you have to copy, this API key from your AssemblyAI dashboard. Once you copy that, you can come in here and paste it, and then you can just decide to close the tabs now, because that's all you need. Now the next thing we're going to do is to create a transcriber object. So I'm going to say transcriber should be equals to transcriber dot transcribe. So this is accessing transcriber that has not yet been created. So this is actually doing the transcription. But to first create that object, we need to say transcriber should be equals to AAI. We need to access from this library dot transcriber. This is what we need to do. And then the transcript, the actual transcript, would now be equals to transcriber dot transcribe this audio file. So transcriber equals to aai.transcriber, and then the transcript should be transcriber.transcribe audio file. Now what we're just going to do is to return, so I'm just going to say return transcriber.text. Now this should work, and once we are able to get the transcription and just return the transcriber.text, we can then come back in here. Just going to copy this particular function first. I'm going to come back in here under get transcript. What I'm going to do is to now say transcription should be equals to get transcription. We're going to give a YT link. So now this should work. And what we're going to say is if not transcription, so if no, just transcription, that means if we didn't get this right here, then we want to say something like right here, we're just going to say, so first of all, right here, all of this is grayed out because there is an error somewhere. So let's make sure that there is no error anywhere. So right here, it gives us an error for this else. Let's see what the error is. Okay, it says there is no OpenAI key. Okay, but that's weird because we're not yet using OpenAI. Okay, we're going to take care of that in a bit. So for now, let's just say if not transcription, then we want to return a JSON response, and that we're going to send it an error because we didn't get a transcription of that particular YouTube video. That means something went wrong somewhere. So this should be in a dictionary on a JSON format, which is very similar to a dictionary. And for the value, we're just going to say failed to get transcript. And right here, we're going to give a status of 500. Now the transcription section should be working fine. Now the next thing we're going to do is to take that transcript that we created and actually generate a blog article from it. Before we move on, there's a bit of an error here because this is kind of grayed out, and if I click on it, you're going to see that it says code is unreachable. That means there's a problem here, and I'm guessing it's from this return because we are returning everything, and anything after return is basically not going to be seen. So that's, if I remove this, as you can see now, everything is perfect. Now the next thing we want to do is to use OpenAI to generate the blog. Now what I'm going to do is to show you how to first get your OpenAI API key, because we're going to need that. So we're going to come here, and then we're going to go to platform.openai.com, and it's going to bring you to this platform. So you just need to sign up and log in. Once you've done that, click on this personal right here, and then click on view API keys. Once you click on that, you can click on create new secret key, and then I'm just going to say blog app, something like this, and create secret key, and it's going to create a new key for you. Then you can copy that key, and then you can use that in your project. So what we're going to do now is to come here, and we are going to have to create a new function that takes care of this to actually generate blog from transcription. So we're going to scroll all the way to the bottom right here, so just before user login, I'm going to say def, and we're going to create a new function named generate blog from transcription, and it's going to take the transcript. So let's just name it transcription. And in here, the first thing we need to do is to use OpenAI. So for now, let's pass. So we need to download or install the OpenAI Python library. What you just need to do is to open your terminal and type pip3 install OpenAI. Just like this. I already have OpenAI installed, so I'm not going to do that. But for you, you should go ahead and do that. And in here, what you just need to do is to say import OpenAI. It's as easy as that. So we just say import OpenAI. So once you import OpenAI, that will allow you to use OpenAI right here in this particular function that we're creating. And now, before we even use OpenAI, we have to specify the OpenAI key. So we're going to say OpenAI.API key equals to, and then remember this key that we created, we're going to copy it, come back in here and paste it. Now we can use that key. And the next thing I'm going to do is to have a prompt. So what this prompt is saying is basically telling OpenAI what to do with the given information that we're going to give it. So what I'm going to do is to give it a particular transcript, which is this transcript in here that we're going to be passing into this function. And I'm going to be saying, based on the following transcript from a YouTube video, write a comprehensive blog article and write it based on the transcript. And I'm also going to tell you to not make it look like a YouTube video, to make it look like a proper blog article. So I'm just going to copy the prompt and paste that prompt in and explain to you what it does, as I said. So right here, I'm just going to paste this in. And as you can see, this is the prompt. So we use the F, and then we're saying, based on the following transcript from a YouTube video, write a comprehensive blog article. Write it based on the transcript, but do not make it look like a YouTube video. Make it look like a proper blog article. And then I did semicolon. I press enter. This just press enter on the prompt, kind of like leaving a bit of space. And then I said transcription. So this transcription is basically the transcript that we're going to pass into this particular function. And then I'm just going to say article. So we're going to be using the completion feature, and that completion feature requires us to like have article. So once I say article, OpenAI knows that under this article, it should generate a blog content or a blog article from all this prompt that we gave it. Now what we're going to do is to now make an API call to OpenAI's completion endpoint. So I'm going to say response should be equals to OpenAI.completion.create, and then I'm going to say model. The model we're going to be using is text DaVinci. So text DaVinci 003. And then the prompt is going to be equals to this prompt right here. I'm going to paste that in, And the last thing that we're going to specify is the amount of tokens. We're going to say max tokens should be equals to 1000. So now that we have that done, the next thing we're just going to do is to extract the generated content from the response. So I'm just going to say generated content equals to response.choices 0.text.strip. So I'm going to explain this too. Now this response is going to give us a response like in a dictionary format, and we're going to say get the first one, under it get the text and then strip. So if we just print out response, you're going to see it's in a dictionary format, but this basically just gets us the text that we need. And now we're just going to return generated content. So now this function should be working perfectly fine now. And what we're just going to do is to go back to the initial. We're going to come back here to this. So right here where we say OpenAI. And then now we're going to use that function by saying blog content equals to generate blog from transcription. And then we're going to give it this transcript that we generated using AssemblyAI. And now that we can generate blog content, we're also going to check if a blog content was created or not. So we'll say if not blog content, that means if something went wrong and it didn't create it, then we're basically going to give it a similar response to this. So we're going to say return JSON response. We're going to say failed to generate blog article. Status should also be 500. Now the next thing we now need to do is to just return. So we're going to save blog to the database. We're going to do this in a bit, but let's first return this blog article as a response. So right here, what we just want to do is to say, so I'm going to come here and say return JSON response. And then we're just going to say content should be blog content. Now this should work, and let's just try this out. And so we're just going to come back in here, and what I'm going to do, we don't really need this again. So what I'm going to do is to open up my YouTube channel. So youtube.com/codewithtommy/videos. I'm going to open up my YouTube channel, and right here I'm just going to copy the link. So I'm going to share one of my videos and copy the link, and I'm just going to hit refresh on this page, and now I'm going to paste this and click generate. Now let's see what this does. Let's give it a bit and let's see what it does. So as this is doing, we're going to come back in here, and under media we're going to see if to make sure that the audio file was actually generated and saved, downloaded and saved in here. So let's see what it does right now. So right here, this is loading for more than usual. So I'm guessing the error is coming from somewhere. So right here, I can see that there is a problem in downloading the audio file, because an audio file is meant to be saved here, but that didn't happen. So if I open this up, let me first see if there's any error. There's no error right here. It just got stuck at this particular loading. So I'm going to close this and come into URLs in my project. So I'm going to tell you why we're coming into these URLs right here. So what I suspect that is the problem is because we didn't specify the media URL right here, which we really need to. It's very important. So I'm going to say from Django.conf import settings, and from Django.conf.urls.static, then import static. And now we are going to say URL patterns equals to, so I'm just going to come in here and paste this in. So we're saying URL patterns equals to URL patterns, which is the initial list, dot plus static settings.media URL, and document root equals settings.media root. Now what we're going to do is to come in here, and right here the first thing we need to change is that there's an error with this transcribe. So instead of saying transcriber.txt, it should be transcript.txt. So that is where one of the error is coming from, but that's not the main reason why that loading is not working. If you come back into index.html, we're going to see that under the script we have this particular line right here that says loading indicator dot class list dot remove hidden. Now if we come into loading indicator right here, there's basically nothing that says, so if I come into loading indicator get element by id loading, which is basically, so there's no element by id that is named loading first of all. So that is the problem, and what we need to do is to remove that, because it's trying to get that but it can't see any element of that. So we're going to have to remove that loading indicator, and we're going to have to remove this loading indicator too. And also right here where it says loading indicator get element by id loading, we need to remove this. Now everything should be working successfully. So let's keep an eye on this media folder and let's see if an mp3 file is going to be saved there. I'm going to copy this, I'm going to hit refresh and paste it and click on generate. Now this is doing its thing, and then we're going to come here to see. Good. So now we can see that a new audio file has been created, and it's giving the title of that YouTube video .mp3, and that's what has been done. And we're just going to come here and wait for it to then first of all transcribe this particular audio file that has been downloaded using AssemblyAI. Then once it's transcribed that file, the next thing it's going to do is now use OpenAI to generate an article from that particular transcript. So let's give it a few seconds. Boom, as you can see, this is a very short article, but this is what we want. It generates everything successfully. It says working with HTML and everything is basically working successfully. So this is the article that has been generated, and that is nice. Now this is good, but the next thing we want to do is to make sure that a user can be able to save all of these articles. So when a user clicks on generate and it shows here, let's say a user closes this tab, we want this article and the details of that YouTube video to be saved onto their account. So there should be a link where they can click and see all the articles that they have generated. Now we're going to go ahead and do that. Now what we're going to do is save all of that particular article into a database, and then we also want the user to be able to view all of that article. So we're going to do that right now. Now the first thing that we want to do is to go into our models.py file, and in there we're going to create a new database. So I'm going to come into models.py and I'm going to create a new database. I'm going to say class blog post. Let me just say blog post. I'm going to say models.model, and it's going to have user, and for the user it's going to be a foreign key, so it's going to be models.foreign key, and we need to import the user in here. So I'm going to say .contrib .auth .models, import user. So now we can use this user in here, and then we have to say on delete models.cascade. Now the next thing is the YouTube title, and that's going to be models.character field, and let's say max length should be like 300. That is reasonable. And then the link, the YouTube link, just going to be models.url field. And then for the generated content, which is the actual article, generated underscore content should be equals to models.text field. So it shouldn't have a max length. And then the date it was created at, so created at models.datetime field, and then we're just going to say auto now add equals true. So this should work. And let's just give it a title. So def string self, and then let's just return. This should be that, and let's just return self.youtube title for each of it. So that means on our database, instead of just showing like objects or whatever, it's going to show the title of that YouTube, of that particular blog post for every single database. Now, once we create a database in Django, we have to migrate. We're going to come in here, and then we're going to do Python free manage.py make migrations. Good. And then we're going to say Python free manage.py migrate. Now that should migrate, and let's give it a second. Good. So that has been migrated successfully. The next thing we're going to do is to come into admin.py, and we want to register this in the admin.py in the admin panel. So we're going to say from .models import blog post, and right here we're going to say admin.site.register blog post. So I'm going to show you why I just did this. If I come back in here, let me go into, I'm just going to open this in a new tab. For now, I'm going to do /admin. It's going to ask me to log in as an admin user, so I'm just going to do that. And now we have created our database. As you can see under the blog generator app, we now have a new database named blog post. So the reason why I did admin.site.register blog post is so that that database can show or can be viewed on this admin panel. Now let me show you something. If I come back to home and right here, let's comment this out. If I hit refresh right here, you're going to see that now we can't see it. Although that particular blog post database is present in our database, if I don't register it to the admin site, I won't be able to see it right here. So I'm just going to Control Z that and then hit refresh. It should connect back right now. Good. So that is what I need. And now the next thing that we're going to do is to now come in here. So whenever in views, whenever we come here, right here where we say save blog article. So just after we've created all the blog content, transcription and everything, just before we return the response, we want to save that particular article. And then for us to do this, we first need to import that particular model, and then once we import the model, then we can save it. So to import this model, I'm just going to close this so that we can have more space. To import this model, we're going to say from .models import blog post, and then for save blog article right here. Now what we're going to do is to say new blog article, should be equals to blog post dot objects dot create user, because if we come back in here, we have user YouTube title. Let's copy YouTube title. User equals, I'm gonna leave this blank for now. YouTube title equals, also gonna leave it blank, and then we're gonna come back to copy all of the values, so we make sure we have everything equals, and then generated content. The only thing we're not going to copy is created at, because it is automatically added by itself. So equals and that. Now the user should be request.user. Request.user basically just returns the currently logged in user, and then YouTube title should be this title right here, which was what we got initially. And then YouTube link should just be this YT link right here. And then generated content should just be blog content. So now to finish it off, we need to say new blog article dot save. Now this is going to save it to the database whenever a user, I'm going to click save, whenever a user search or try to generate an article. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to hit refresh. It should say welcome admin because we're now logged in as admin. I'm going to paste it now and hit generate. But now the difference is that this is going to be saved onto the database. We're not just generating a blog article from a YouTube video now like the last time. This time around, everything that is going to be generated is going to be saved into the database. So details like the YouTube link, the YouTube title, the whole article that we created, and all of that is going to be saved in here. So we're going to be able to come into blog posts and then we're going to be able to view the database. So for now, let's just leave this as it is. It says 0 blog posts. That means it's still in the works. Good. Now you can see that right here, everything has been generated. If I come back into our database now and hit refresh, you can now see that we now have a new data or a new object in there. So it gives us the title. If you use Django, you need this VS Code extension. Once we click on it, we have all the details. We have the user that owns it, the YouTube title, the link, which is the URL, and then the whole generated content, which is the whole blog post or article that was created. This is nice. But now the next thing that we want to do is to basically show the user all of the article that they have generated. So right now we just have it saved in our database, but there's no way a user can just come here and then see all of the previously generated articles. Now we're going to do that. Now let's go ahead and allow a user to see a list of all the blog articles that they have created. For us to do this, I need to come into URLs and I need to create one URL. So right here, I'm just going to copy and paste this actually. And I'm going to make this blog list. I'm just going to copy all of this. And I'm going to have it here as blog list. And I'm going to just paste this also as blog list. Now in views, I'm going to come all the way to the bottom. And for now, I could just actually make all of this small because we don't really need that. I'm minimizing all of that. And right here, I'm just going to say blog list. And it's going to take a request. For now, I'm going to pass. Let me just reduce this and this. If I open this up and come into template, so we have an HTML file named all blogs. So we're going to return that. Return render request all blogs. That's HTML. Now if we go here and we come to slash blog list, good, we can now see this particular page. But instead of just this static data, we want to actually get the data from our database. Now for us to do this, we're going to come into views.py, and in here what we just need to do is to say that we're going to create a new variable and say blog underscore articles is equals to blog post dot object dot filter. So we're going to get all of the database from this blog post, but we're going to filter it to only the one where the user is equals to the currently logged in user, which is request.user. And then we're going to render that particular blog article to the HTML page. So right here, we're just going to do blog articles. So that is going to work. That is basically what we need for this. But the last thing we need to do, because if I come here and hit refresh, it doesn't make any change. As you're going to see, nothing changed. Because the last thing we need to do is to come in to all blogs, and right here where we have after all blog posts, where we have after this, so this is basically the div tag that takes care of this particular border right here. So I'm just going to remove one of it first of all. When I remove one of this, should just have one. And now I'm going to loop through this the amount of times that we have in here. So in here that we have in here, so this blog article is basically a list. is like a list of all the data objects from our blog post database with the one where the user is equals to the currently logged in user. So now I'm going to loop through that list by saying for article in blog articles, and in here just after this div tag I'm going to say end for. I'm going to save it. Right here, if I hit refresh, it's not going to make any change because it's just one. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here back to the home page. So I'm just going to come here and get rid of all of this. I'm going to come back to my YouTube channel once again. I'm going to open that up, and in here I'm just going to take one of the videos here. I'm just going to share and copy, and I'm going to paste this and generate. So what I want to do now is I want to generate another article from that YouTube video, and I'm generating that article just to show you something. So I want to show you how it basically shows all of the articles we've generated. Even if it's more than one, it's going to show me them in like a list format, and we'll be able to click on any one of those articles and see the details of each of those articles. So that's why I'm generating more than one, just so I can show you. Now let's come back in here and open up media and see if it downloaded that. As you can see, it has downloaded the audio file. That means it is working. So we're just going to give it a few seconds for it to actually generate the article. Good. So now the article has been generated, and hopefully it should have been saved into our database. So what I'm going to do now is to basically go back to blog post. Now if I hit refresh, you're going to see that I have two blog posts now. That is because I've already generated two articles, but it doesn't show me the detail. That is because I haven't specified the detail here. So for the blog title, what I just need to do is to say article. So I'm going to get rid of all of this. Article.youtube underscore title, which I got from here. So article.youtube title. And then the next thing I'm going to do is to say, I'm going to copy all of this, and this is the content. So from the content, I want to show, like, let's say like 10 words from the content, the first 10 words, just to show you here like a spinet. I'm going to paste that in there, and I'm going to say dot generated content. But instead of showing all of the content, I'm just going to show, let's say, to the first 80 characters, for example. I'm going to say truncate characters 80. So it's going to truncate or cut it off after the first 80 characters. I'm going to save this and hit refresh, and let's see what it does. So it says if you use Django, this is the first one we created, and then it truncates it, and the second one it truncates it. And next thing I'm going to do is to make sure that it shows this in the order where it shows the most latest article that I created first, because as you can see, this was the first I created, this was the second. If it keeps going like this, it's just gonna, as a new one is coming, it's gonna keep adding to the bottom of the list. That's not what we want. I want the most recent one to be at the top. So this is very easy. When we're using our for loop, we're just gonna say for article in blog articles reversed. So once you say reverse, you're just going to reverse that particular list, and that is going to do the work for you. So as you can see now, it shows the most recent one first. Now this is working, but the next thing I want to do is that whenever a user clicks on any of this, I want to show details of that particular page. Sorry, of that particular article. So once I click on any of this article, I want it to take me to a unique page and show me all the full details of this particular blog article. Now we're going to go into URLs, and in URLs, we're going to create a new URL. Now this new URL we're going to create is going to show the details of a particular blog article. So we're going to say blog details. I'm just going to copy this, paste this here, and also for blog list, paste that there. This should be underscore. Now the only different thing is that in here I'm gonna use this. I'm gonna have int, so I'm gonna be using a dynamic URL. That is what it's called. I'm gonna save this, and what this is doing is just saying that we can't just come to /blog details, so we have to go to /blog details /something. Now this will be the ID of that particular blog article that we are trying to view. For example, we want it to be under the same URL, but the details of that page is going to be different regarding the ID. So once I click on this, because it's going to have a different ID, it's going to take me to the same URL but different details. Same thing for this. And I'm going to show you how we do that right now. So what we just need to do is to come back in here. We're going to go into views. So we're going to create dev blog details. And on here, we're just going to take a request. And now what we're going to do is to say blog article detail equals to blog post dot objects, this time around dot get. I want to get the one where the ID is equals to pk. So what we're going to do is that in here, once a user clicked on this, we're going to take them to blog details /ID of that particular blog post. So we're going to get the ID of that particular blog post and bring them here. Then that is going to be saved in a variable named pk, and then that is going to be passed into these blog details views, and we're just going to say we're going to get the details by saying blog post.object.get the particular object where the ID is equals to pk. Remember, pk is the ID passed in the URLs. Now that we have that particular one, the next thing we're going to do, well, first of all, it says this is not seen. We have to say pk right here, so we have to add that we are requesting for a variable named pk. And the next thing to do is to say if request.user. So I want to first make sure that the user that is currently logged in is the owner of that particular blog article. So we don't want someone else viewing another person's article just because they have the ID. So we're going to say if request.user, that means if the currently logged in user is equals to blog article detail dot user. So if it's the same person, then we want to return render request, and then we are going to render blog details.html. So blog details.html, and then we're going to send this blog article detail right here into the HTML. So that's what we are doing. But if the user is not the owner of that email, so else, sorry, if the user is not the owner of that article, we're just going to redirect the user back to the home page. Good. Now this is what we need. This should be working. The next thing that we want to do is to come into all blogs, and in all blogs we basically want to have like an A tag. So if I come in here, I'm going to say A, and I'm going to end that tag right here. So we want to make this clickable. This particular, each of these want to make it clickable, and we're going to use an A tag for this. I just tab and this, and what we're just going to do is to say /blog details. Remember, we created blog details right here. So /blog details /the ID. So that is under all blogs /the ID. In this situation is going to be article.id. Nice. So this is basically what we need. Now if I hit save that and I come back here and hit refresh, now I'm going to click on one and it's going to take me to another page. This is what it shows. In a bit we're going to show all the details we need, but if I come here, you're going to see it gives me the ID, which is 2. If I go back and click on this page, it gives me the ID, which is 1. So it's the same page, the same template, everything, but we're using a dynamic URL. Now what we're just going to do now, the last thing to do is to come into, so I'm just going to expand this and go into blog details. So now we're going to come into blog details, and then we're actually going to showcase everything that we passed from here, which is blog article detail. So right here in blog details, what we're just going to do is to come down, and right here where we have, we're just going to click on one, and then the first thing that we want to change is the blog post title. So right here where we have blog post title, I'm just going to delete that, and in here I want to have blog article detail dot YouTube title. And for the content, it's going to be the same thing, but I want to have the whole content showing. So just going to copy that and paste that in here. Going to models, click on generated content, copy that and paste that in there. The next thing that I'm going to do, let me copy this. Actually, what I need is this for the YouTube title. So this is going to be the title associated. I'm just going to paste that straight away. And then for the link, it's going to be, so right here we're going to have this link. I'm just going to paste this, and then for the models, I'm going to come into YouTube link. I'm just going to change YouTube title to YouTube link. And then the next thing we want to do is that whenever a user clicks on that link, we want to actually take them to that particular URL for that video. So we're going to copy this and paste this in here. Now let's see how this works. If we hit refresh, you can now see that it tells me the title, shows me the article, the same thing, the title right here, and then the link. So we can actually click on this video to go watch that particular video. Click on the link and then we'll watch the video. So now if I go back right here, I could click on anyone, and then it's going to show me all the details of that one. So if I click on this, that works successfully. So now everything is basically working. But the last thing I want to do is to take care of this navbar, because on the navbar I can't really go back anywhere. I have to be using this. I'm just going to come in here, and we're going to start from here. So right here, the first thing we want to do is to just have the welcome, and then we want to have, so I'm just going to come here and do this. So we're going to have the one for welcome, and then we're going to have the one that basically allows us to view all the saved blog posts. So I'm just going to copy this div tag and paste it everywhere. Save this in all blogs. I'm going to come here and then paste that in there, and also in index.html that needs to be pasted. I'm just going to come here and then paste that in here. So now if I come here and hit refresh, let's say I'm on one of this, I could then go to save blog posts, and then it brings me here, and that is basically what we want. So right now everything is working perfectly fine with our application. So let me go back to the home page. Right here, everything is working. I could put a link and click generate. It's going to generate that for me. And then once I click on save blog post, I'm going to see all of the blog posts I have saved from the most latest. And if I click on one, I'm going to see details of that particular blog post. So everything is now working fine. Now we're going to go ahead to deploy this application of ours to the web. The first thing we need to do is to go into GitHub. I'm going to go into GitHub, and I'm just going to create a new repository, and I'm going to call this repository AI article generator. Let's say AI blog article generator, and then I'm going to leave this public, and everything is going to be as it is. I'm just going to create repository. Now I'm just going to copy all of this command, and I'm just going to come up in here. Let me just cut out of this server, and I'm going to paste all of that command in here. So right here, it gives us an error, and this is because we didn't do git add. So what I'm just going to do is to say git init, git add, and now I'm going to say git commit. I just want to make sure we're adding everything we need. Good. and now we can say git branch this, git branch to the main, and this, and then now we can push it. Just gonna push it, and we're gonna give that a bit of a few seconds just to do that, and this normally doesn't take a long time. And once you come in here, once you open this up in another tab, it should, okay, it hasn't yet deployed successfully. Cool, so now it says that as done. Now if I come here and hit refresh, you're now gonna see that we have all of that in this particular page right here. Now that this is done, the next thing that we're going to do is to now actually deploy this application onto the web. So we're going to deploy this application using a platform called Zit. So I'm going to open up that platform right now. So it's called Zit. So zit.co. That's where you need to go to. And I'm just going to log in. So this allows us to deploy any application, not just Django applications, basically any application they support it. I'm just going to log in with GitHub. You can log in with Google or whatever you want to. And it automatically uses my GitHub to log in. And now let's just go get started with deploying our application. It's very easy. And what we're just going to say is I've got my own. I'm going to say deploy my own repo. And what would I like to deploy? And I'm just going to leave this as it is. So for now, these are the most popular right here. So we're just going to click on AWS Lambda, and under that, now what we're going to do is to come into GitHub, and we're going to select this AI blog article generator, and now it asks us to link our AWS account. So my AWS account is on my Chrome, so I'm just going to quickly switch to Chrome. And now what I'm just going to do is to click on connect, and then it's going to try to connect to my AWS account. And right here, I'm just going to click on AWS, and it's going to ask for my account ID. So to get your account ID, you need to log in, and then you need to come to the top right corner and copy that account ID. We're just going to make sure that we copy it, and you're going to come back in here and paste in that account ID and click on add. Now it says it has been added. What we just need to do now is to authorize. I'm going to click on that button to authorize, and we're just going to wait for it to load up. I'm going to make sure that everything loads successfully, and then it's going to basically show us this button that says create stack. So we're going to wait for that button to show up before we do anything. Good. So now we're going to come down. I'm going to say I acknowledge this, and then I'm going to create stack. So it says create in progress. Well, we're going to come back here and see. So it's authorizing. Now, as you can see, it says create complete. We're going to come back here, and good, it says connected, yes. So now this works perfectly fine. I can come back here now, and if I hit refresh, it should show me that my AWS account is connected. So I'm just going to hit refresh. I'm going to click on this blog again, and I'm going to now click on continue. And now build template, we're just going to click on Django right here, and then we're going to leave all of this as it is. And then right here, what we're just going to do, we don't need this and we don't need this, but for networking the port is 8000, so we're going to change the port from 3000 to 8000, and we don't need anything here, so we're going to click on continue. And new name, we're just going to say Tommy Toko. Let's just give this sandbox, and now we can say deploy. Now this is going to take a few minutes to deploy, and it's going to take us to this page. It's going to tell us that build pending and everything, and right here you're going to be able to see what is going on in real time. And when everything is done, I'm going to come back. Now as you can see, it says that the build was failed, and the reason why is because it couldn't see a requirement.txt file, so we need to go ahead and change that. So right here in our code, what we need to do now is to come here and then do pip freeze requirement.txt. So once we do that, if I come here, we should now have a requirement.txt file, and then what I'm just going to do is to then take this into or update this into our repository. Now what I'm just gonna do is after git init, git add, and then commit second. Good, one file changed. And then after committing branch, we technically don't need to do some of the things again, but let's just do it. Already exists, and now we can push, and that should be done. Now if we come back here, it's gonna start building again. So once again, that is gonna take a few minutes, and once we're done, I'm gonna be back. Now this says it has deployed successfully. So as you can see, it says your project is successfully deployed. Now it's going to take me to the overview page. So here I can see all the details of my project. What I'm going to do is to just click on this particular endpoint. So this is the URL where my project is hosted. You can add your own specific domain, but for this video we're not going to be doing that. So as I open it, you can see that our project successfully loaded. So we've successfully built this application and also deployed it to the web. So that's going to be all for this tutorial. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got value out of watching this tutorial. And if you did, please don't forget to click on the like button and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.